They won't give us away, Tyler. What is going on, everybody? Happy afternoon. Happy evening if you're out there on the East Coast. You're getting close. It's time for the MLB Deeper Dive presented by Yahoo. I'm Eric Lindquist. Excited to be talking through this 13-game MLB slate with the one, the only, Neil Orfield at PlayerQ DFS on Twitter. Go follow him there. One of the important dudes behind the scenes, doing all of the great things here now at Stokastic. Happy to have him along for the ride today. How you doing, my dude?
I'm doing well, Eric. And I didn't get a chance to see you on Wednesday. I wanted to wish you a happy birthday. I hear you just turned 40.
You're a dick. Did you, hang on, was it your birthday, like actually today?
My birthday was on Tuesday.
Oh, got it.
But I'm
Did
not 40
they
yet.
spell your
so it's not a
name
big
wrong
one
on
for
the
me.
cake on purpose? Was that on purpose?
Probably. I have no
Okay.
idea. You would be shocked the number of people who spell Neil wrong. It's a 4-letter name, and I think it's like half the time people get it wrong. They either spell N-E-A-L or N-I-E-L, and it doesn't matter that the name is right in front of them. People just get it wrong all the time, so I'm used to it.
There's only one way to spell Neil, right?
There's only one correct way to spell Neil.
It's like there's only one way to spell Eric. C at the end for correct.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I only see Eric with C at the end in Stokastic YouTube chat, so I think everybody agrees with you here.
Yeah, I was gonna say we have 40 million Erics. Team Eric, by the way, Eric Traub. We've got Eric McPherson, of course, EMAC 2024. We've got, I'm sure we have another freaking, so there's got to be another Eric somewhere.
There's a lot of Erics in the chat.
There's a lot of Erics hanging out and about, but you know what? It's okay by me. It's okay by me. We need more Neils. That's what I'm pushing for.
Not a lot of Neils. There's at least one Neil who spells it with an A in chat sometimes. I forget what his last name is. Yeah,
I just said you're not allowed to do that. I don't trust it either.
I don't trust it.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Anything that you want to say about this slate before we start diving in? Because again, 13 games. I want to be all silly and stuff, but here's the thing. I can't always do it when it's 13 games. I want to give the people the great information, and you being from Minnesota, hey, we got to go put on the snowshoes and go to work. Yeah, you got to go out and shovel. You got to go shovel the driveway. You got to get the people ready to go, don't you now?
It's July. I don't really have to do a lot of shoveling today, but
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
got to put the work boots on. We got to go to work.
I would say my biggest overarching theme on this slate is there's a lot of good pitching. Just especially at the top, there's a lot of aces on the slate. So yeah, I'd say that is my biggest takeaway. Of course, it's a Dodgers and Coors game. Was it the last time we saw this where Chad Kuhl shut down the Dodgers for 9 innings, I believe? So it's that same
we'll
matchup happening again.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about outliers? Welcome to Outlier City, whatever the hell that outing was.
Outlier City.
Yeah, it was a complete game, by the way.
Complete game shutout, I think.
Or yeah, maybe not complete game shutout.
Yeah, that's nuts.
It was the dumbest thing that I've witnessed with my eyes in baseball, which says something because I've witnessed some stupid stuff. Like, I don't know, the chalkiest of all chalk, Raimel Tapia, hitting a pop fly to center that turns into a grand slam in the inside the park home run. But you know what? That's a different slate. We're talking about today's slate, and we're a forward-thinking program here. So I'm ready to rock. You ready to rock, my dude?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. We start with first game on the board, Kansas City Royals, a 3 implied total. New York Yankees, 5.9. And why? Well, Chris Bubic is terrible, and Garrett Cole is not. I'm assuming we don't have anything to say about Bubic. We'll talk about him when we talk about the Yankees bats. But Garrett Cole, you said there's some good pitching. Let's just start with perhaps the best.
Yeah, I think Garrett Cole is pretty clearly the best pitcher on this slate. The top pitchers tool would bear that out. 29.4% chance of being one of the top 2 pitchers on the slate on DraftKings. Second place is Justin Verlander at 16.3 on a 13-game slate. To have a 13% difference between the top pitching option and the second pitching option is pretty massive. So yeah, Garrett Cole is kind of a no-brainer slam dunk play. The only thing going against Garrett Cole here is 45.1% projected ownership on a 13-game slate is a little bit high, but we've talked about it several times on these shows that we like to get different more with bats than with pitchers. So I'm totally comfortable getting too close to the field. I would probably be close to the field. I don't know exactly how many lineups I'm going to play today, but if I played a full 150, my guess is I would come in at like 40%, be a little bit under the field, but I don't really see any reason that you need to. I think he's just the safest pitcher on the board. He's got a great matchup. He's a great strikeout pitcher. I don't know what else you can say. Do you agree with me, Garrett Cole, the number 1 pitcher on the slate today?
Yeah, I do. But Neil, I'm confused. Have you come to the dark side? Because I mean, we were doing shows earlier in the year, and I feel like there were a couple times where I had to have a conversation where it was like, do we really want to fade Shohei Ohtani in this spot? Do we really want to go under the field on Shohei Ohtani in this spot? Hopefully, I mean, 75%, it still worked out yesterday. I was like, all right, that's fine by me. I'm with you today, but have you changed your tune a little bit, my friend?
I throughout the year, I have changed my tune a little bit, and I don't know that it's for the best. I had a much more successful year last year. I think I changed my tune in part because I didn't start off great this year. So eventually I was just like, I need to switch things up and listen to what other great players are saying, which is I've heard from a lot of pros on these shows and in general that most pros are differentiating themselves more with bats than with pitchers. So I changed up my strategy because I was not having a lot of success early on. So I am now allowing myself to get closer to the field in some spots. And sometimes even I go over the field on pitchers that look like they're going over owned in the top pitchers tool. I sometimes allow myself to go over own there. Yeah. So yes, I guess the long answer.
I feel like I just watched you go through multiple emotions there. You were just like, you were like, I saw your DK balance and I had, visions of grandeur that I just watched you explain MLB and the crippling ridiculousness. By the way, can we put some respect on the name for Neil Orfield? Multiple $1 million time winner? Correct?
No, one-time winner.
No.
One time.
Oh, okay. Just once. All right. You're poor, you peasant.
Yeah, I mean,
can I borrow $1?
Donations.
I'll Venmo you.
Okay. All right.
Eric Johnson says that I need a beer, and Eric Johnson is correct.
Yeah, it is so true. I need one too.
And you know what? I'm going out after the show.
I wonder if I could get my wife to give me a beer while I'm on this show.
Oh, man.
I think that was definitely I just need one now. Now that you've even said it, I'm triggered. Yeah,
I could use a beer. I'm going out to a patio later to have a beer. So I'm
where in the North Loop you going?
I'm not going to the North Loop. I'm going to what's it called? Longfellow Grill. They have incredible chimichurri short rib. It's like nothing I've had before. It's so good.
I hate you. Well, at some point I'll be up in Minneapolis because I get up there once in a while.
Yeah, let's go.
Even here in LA, but we're gonna go have whatever you just described because I want it, and I'm gonna have a Surly beer with it because Surly Brewing Company is the bomb. That is what I know about Minneapolis. But we continue on. Let's talk bats. We don't really need to talk about Kansas City bats. If you're somebody who stacks against super popular pitchers, you're probably just gonna do it anyway. But my God, it does not look nice, this Kansas City lineup.
Yeah, I'm not going to bother with Kansas City today. That's another way that I have kind of come around. I feel like last year I spread it out a little bit more where I would have at least like one or two just to get above the field because they do have positive leverage in the top stacks. They'll come in at 0.7% projected ownership, 0.9% chance of being the top stack, 3.4% chance of being the top point per dollar stack. But I don't think it's on a 13 game slate against Garrett Cole. I'm not taking that chance today.
I'm nervous. I was just catching up with chat, and I agreed with something Sean V said, and I feel like I definitely need a beer. Let's go to the Yankees. We'll talk about Lance Lynn later, but the Yankees, here we go. If you're not going to be stacking up the Dodgers, which we just got their lineup, that's awesome. Really cool that they would do such things. But the Yankees, slight negative leverage that exists there, but you get Aaron Judge. You get a pretty cheap discount compared to what we've been paying for the likes of Anthony Rizzo. He was over $5K not too long ago, now down to $4,500 for DK purposes. You get power in some other spots. Back half of the lineup is what it is. How do you feel about the Yankees in the context of today's slate?
Yeah, I really like the Yankees here today. They look slightly over-owned in the top stacks tool, but Yankees against Chris Bubich, and you compare them to the Dodgers. Dodgers coming in at projected 31% ownership. The Yankees are down at 7.8%. They have a 7.5% chance of being the top stack on the board. That is fifth of all teams today. I just think that the Yankees are too good to fade, even with a slight. They're essentially a neutral team in this top stacks tool. So I do like the Yankees here today. They're one of the best odds of all teams on this slate, and you'd kind of expect that, right? Yankees against Chris Bubich, can't get much better than that. So yeah, sign me up for some Yankees today.
Oh, you mean Chris Bubich's .463 expected slugging, his 17.7% K rate, his 11.9% walk rate? Yeah, drop kick me in the face and call me Susan. We should play some Yankees bats.
Is that a reference to something?
No, I just said it now.
Okay. Yeah, that's a normal
how my
thing to
brain
say.
works. Just let it happen, Neil. Let it happen.
I appreciate
We
the way your
continue.
brain
Anything
works.
else from this game for you? So we're just playing Garrett Cole and we're just playing Yankees. Whoop-de-doo, Basil. What does it all mean?
Yep, I think that is right on. Yankees 5.9 run implied total. Garrett Cole, top pitcher on the slate. Love the Yankees not playing in your Royals. That sums it up, I think.
All right. Well, let's talk St. Louis with their much improved lineup. Why? Well, they got their two best players back. That seems important. Seems like something you want in your life. We've got Miles Michaelis and Anibal Sanchez. I'm not too enthusiastic with pitching in this one by any means. Don't even know what I would even. I don't know how many lineups it would take for me to get to one of these pitchers. We'll say the answer, though, a ton more than what I'm going to be making today.
Yeah, so I think I'm probably on the same page as you. Anibal Sanchez looks good in the top pitchers tool. I mean, 0.6% projected ownership, 2.8% chance of being a top two pitcher on the board, and 19.1% chance of being a top point per dollar pitcher on the board. But let me see if I got to. I ran a crunch of 500 just to see what I will get to if I would get to any of these guys, and I did not get to a single share. Anibal Sanchez is not somebody that I'm going to be giving any kind of boost because I want to get there. So yeah, I'm on the same page as you. I'm not getting to either of them despite some positive leverage on the top pitchers tool. There's just so many pitchers that are actually good and in good spots today that you would need so many pitchers to fail to really underperform for Anibal Sanchez to really be worth playing, I think. So I don't think I'm going there either.
There's another Eric Johnson. By the way, Oakland is not going to be chalk, and I love them because Lance Lynn is terrible. Love is probably a strong word. I'm going to tolerate them in my lineups today, or in a handful of lineups today, because Lance Lynn, very bad. Let's talk very good offense. St. Louis Cardinals, now they get their boys back, specifically Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, going along with like some decent guys at the top that are somewhat valuable. Dylan Carlson, 4,100. Tyler O'Neill, 4,200, garnering a ton of ownership. If you're playing him as a one-off, I don't know what to tell you. I probably wouldn't do such things at 20% ownership. I would just play Dodgers one-offs if I'm going to be playing a guy 20% on a 13-game slate. Just give me the best spots, whatever. You get some salary savings. Nolan Gorman, welcome back to the land of the living, went yard in that 6-1 W that they had the other night. How do you feel about the Cardinals on today's slate?
I mean, they look so that there's negative leverage there in the top stacks tool. I think I prefer the Yankees just due to the reduced ownership if you're comparing some of these top teams. But they still, the Cardinals are the number 3 team overall in the top stacks tool, coming in at a 7.7% chance of being the top stack on the board. Really, the only thing not to like about them is the 9.6% projected ownership. That's a lot on a 13-game slate. But I mean, I get it. They're facing Anibal Sanchez. They look good. So I guess my feeling on the Cardinals is that in a 150 set, I would probably want to come in under the field. I probably wouldn't play them in one of my first 5 lineups due to the negative leverage. But if you're making, 10, 15 lineups, you're probably going to want to have at least one Cardinal stack just because they are such a good team in such a good spot against Anibal Sanchez. And then looking at the top batters tool, I see Paul Goldschmidt has the second best odds of all first basemen of being the. Wait, no, I have this. Looks like I have this wrong. Okay, he's third of all first basemen in terms of
liar
odds of being the top fantasy point producer. Liar in what way?
No, you lied to the people. How dare you?
I did. Yeah. I'm still new to this top batters tool, so I'm trying to figure out. Nolan Gorman. Am I reading this right? Nolan Gorman has the top odds of all second basemen of being the top fantasy point scorer. Yeah, it's 6.1%. Nolan Gorman is the top second baseman in terms of odds of being the top fantasy point scorer at 6.1%. So gotta love that. 3,200.
I love Nolan Gorman. Here's the thing. He ran into a rut, the Killers have a song called Rut. For those who don't know, don't give up on me. I'm just in a rut. I'm climbing, but the walls keep stacking up. That is the exact verse that I think of when I think of one Nolan Gorman. Let it ride, people. I love him. I think he's going to be really good long-term still. Just figuring it out at the big league level. Yeah. There's just so much pop. He's still got 10 homers on the year. It's more than most. I'll put it that way. More than most at the position. 3,200. Pay attention to the weather here in this one, people. That is for damn sure. As we move to the Washington side, you can always play Soto, but there's no way that I'm going to be landing on any kind of meaningful amount of this team, especially if there's any kind of question with weather in Washington, definitely paying attention to it more for the St. Louis side. But anything outside of Soto you want to get to here?
No, I don't think so. I'm not going to be doing full stacks of Washington. Don't interest me. They're coming in at 3.4% projected ownership on the stack with only a 1.6% chance to be in the top stack on the board. That is pretty massive negative leverage. So not a ton of interest there. Yeah, obviously you can always get to Soto, but yeah, I don't think there's anything else that really interests me here.
Artie Van House. Yeah, how about Tapia? How about he's killing champion?
I was so glad I didn't play that slate.
Yeah, congratulations. I lost my mind because of that home run. I just lost it.
Yeah, I get it.
It's all right. The other night I was in like third in the $4. I was in like top 10 in the $15. And then, I got my Albert Pujols home run. I was just celebrating. Didn't play any Gaussman. I had way more Luis Castillo. And then my boy, Bobby Dahlbeck, who I think I've given the benefit of the doubt to 1,000 times. He was going to be chalky at like 2,200 or whatever he was. Of course he goes double dong. Of course he goes double dong.
I played that slate and I was doing pretty well for a little while. And then, didn't have Dahlbeck. I was pretty dead.
Fun times, fast times at Ridgemont High. Anything else from this game for you?
No, I think we covered it pretty well.
All right, smash the like button, people. Please. That'd be very nice of you. That's all I had. I didn't really have a read or anything else. I just wanted to say it very, very aggressively because we go to Philadelphia and Pittsburgh here. And Philadelphia Phillies, 4.5 implied runs going up against the Pittsburgh Pirates, 4.2. I do not think Jose Quintana is good. I do not think Bailey Falter is good. They're 5.79 expected ERA for Falter and 4.18 expected ERA for Quintana show such things. Neither one strikes out bats. I can't imagine I get to either as a pitcher. So why don't we just talk about stacks, shall we?
Yep. Perfect. Let's move on.
Good talk. Stacks. Let's talk Philadelphia, because this is a team that if you're not going to be playing and stacking up the Dodgers, if you're not going to be stacking up Toronto, which is another very popular team, and you're not going to stack up St. Louis, another popular team, I look at the Phillies as one that could actually get us there in a lot of ways. And here's kind of why. You get a combination of some value at the top of this order. You get Alec Boehm, who's been moved up to batting third here the last couple, going up against a lefty at 3,800. You get Rhys Hoskins there at 4,200. He's better than plus 300 around the industry, according to OddsShopper, to hit a home run today. Even left on left crime with Schwarber at the top of this lineup. Real Muto at the catcher position. Veerling is 2K flat. I kind of like getting to this team at least 1 through 6. I don't know how much I need to go to Munoz, Herrera, or Camargo at the bottom of it, but how do you feel about Philadelphia?
I don't have a ton of interest in Philadelphia as a full stack. I agree with you that, some of the individual batters look pretty good, but they're one of the few teams that has negative leverage here today, coming in at 5.1% projected ownership with a 4.3% chance to be in the top stack on the board. It's not huge negative leverage, but there are just so many good spots today that I don't feel like I need to be taking shots on teams that have negative leverage. So I don't think I'm going to get to a lot of full Phillies stacks. But yeah, I think as one-offs, a lot of them do make some sense. I have too many tabs open. I'm having trouble finding all my different information, but let me see where I'm getting to in terms of Phillies. I do think Kyle Schwarber, you can pretty much always play Kyle Schwarber even in a negative matchup. Yeah, I'm getting to a good amount of JT Realmuto, pretty good amount of JT Realmuto. Just anytime you can get a catcher in the 4 spot, he's going to look pretty good. Rhys Hoskins looks good. Surprised I didn't get to much Alec Boehm coming in. He's only 3,800 in the 3 spot. I didn't get to much Alec Boehm at all in a crunch of 500.
I did. We'll put it that way.
You did get some Alec Boehm?
Yeah,
were you doing Phillies full stacks?
I do have some, again, 1 through 6. I think that there's ways to put that together. Castellanos has been bad this year. Just bad. 34.4% hard hit percentage, 386 expected slugging. I don't know what's going on there, but I'm going to continue to find out here because anytime he's facing a lefty, he's just done it for too long. I don't think he's washed yet. Schwarber, I'll still play left on left, even though Jose Quintana, only a 254 slugging against lefties this season. That's a really nice number to be looking at. So he's very effective against some of these lefties. Again, I don't know why Odubel Herrera is in this lineup today, but such is life. Can't really land on any Quintana with the strikeout rate, but I think the top of this order, Schwarber's just good, so I'm willing to kind of overlook it in some full stacks here. Nothing crazy. I'm getting to 4% of them. It's not crazy, but Alec Boehm as a one-off and JT Realmuto, I'm getting to quite a bit.
Yeah. So I wonder if the reason I'm not getting to Alec Boehm is maybe he doesn't project quite well enough for me to get to him naturally as a one-off. And
Well,
then
you
also
have
I look
Max
through,
Muncy there at 3,900, so.
right. And then I've got just on the Phillies so I split up my stacks here. And on the Phillies, in my Philly stacks, I'm sure I have a lot more of Yairo Munoz and Johan Camargo, who are both
that
third
was
base
the
elemental.
most Minnesota pronunciation. Yairo Munoz. So
I have no idea how to pronounce Yairo
shout out
Munoz.
to my dad.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: if we get over 1,000 likes, I'll put this video on the internet because
Can you give me
one of the greatest things ever.
The California pronunciation of Yairo Munoz?
Yairo Munoz. So the guy coming up next, Terry McBride, says this name so good. It is phenomenal.
Sure.
Munoz.
Can't wait.
He'll have like a roll with it too or something. But my dad in the pandemic, fun story. And this is kind of worth it. So here we go. My dad's never really drank hard alcohol his entire life. He's a Coors Light guy. You know what I'm talking about. The Midwest, born and bred.
Sure. I love Coors Light.
Coors Light. He just wants a Coors Light. He's a man's man. He's like a big dude. And, I'm his little California son who, likes my exotic beers. He's just give me a Coors Light. And I'm like, oh, this whiskey's great. Oh, just give me a beer. So anyway, during the pandemic, he's like, you know what? I think I want to try tequila. And so my mom bought a bunch of different tequilas and we did like, the way that they do the pizza tasting on Barstool.
Mm-hmm.
My dad did tequila tasting.
Oh, God.
And him trying to say Casamigos, Jose Cuervo, some of these names have been forever etched in my brain as just absolute. I mean, it is so white Midwestern awfulness. I can't even say. I'm offended for Jose Cuervo, the way that he said it was like, I can't even do it. So there's a video of him online where I will post it, him drinking Casamigos, Jose Cuervo, everything else. If we get over 1,000 likes,
yeah, you should find that. Yeah, let's get to 1,000 likes. Can you guys give us some likes so we can see Eric's
It is so
dad
damn
on Twitter?
good. It might be one of the best videos of all time. Yeah, he'll probably be mad at me, but I don't give a shit. He's not on Twitter. Let's continue on, shall we? I don't really know what to say about Pittsburgh because this guy is really bad that we're looking at. This Bailey Falter character. He throws a low 90s ball, 525 expected slugging, and 19.7% K percentage. There's really nothing about him that is any good. And we do want to try to find some contrarian secondary stacks. Could Pittsburgh be one of them for you today, my friend Neil?
Yeah, I think you could play some Pittsburgh. The pitching is so good at the top end of today's slate that I think that we are gonna probably need to play some of these cheaper stacks, maybe as secondary stacks, maybe even as sometimes as primary stacks. Pittsburgh coming in at 3.6% projected ownership with a 2% chance of being the top stack on the board, so negative leverage there. But they have an 8.1% chance of being the top point per dollar stack on the board, which matters to me more on slates like this where there is a lot of high-end pitching to pay up for. So I think I will probably get to some Pittsburgh stacks, at least as a secondary stack here against in a great matchup against Bailey Falter.
All right, we continue on, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, well, first, of course, gotta talk about Stokastic tools and content because it's the tools and content that Neil has used to win $1 million once upon a time. It's going to be happening again for you in NFL season. I have a feeling we're going to have an amazing NFL season here at Stokastic. I'm very much looking forward to it. But our tools and content for MLB are crushing. I don't know if anybody saw who won the $15 on DK yesterday. His name's Awesemo. The company used to be named after him because he's just that damn good, but he's still here at Stokastic in-house, and he is continuing to update the best projections, ownership projections, player projections, batters tool. With Sean's on doing a bunch of great work for that. We have the top pitchers tool, the top stacks tool, everything you want to be able to win at MLB. Use promo code MLBDD. That is the promo code MLBDD to get 50% off your first week of Stokastic Plus. If you're still twiddling your thumbs, biding your time before NFL, like a lot of you, I understand. I don't know if we're going to have like a 50% off deal. I'm sure we're going to have something for NFL, but right now, there's no reason you shouldn't just get 50% off 1 week of all of the best tools and content that exist here in the entire DFS industry. So stop guessing, start winning, and get more than just MLB. Get NASCAR, get F1. There's a UFC card this weekend. I know that some people think it's not the greatest card ever, but I am definitely going to be playing it, and I hope you guys play it too. with some of our tools that just continue to pop out winners too. So stop guessing, start winning, and join us at Stokastic Plus today with promo code MLBDD at checkout. We move along to Go Tigers, Detroit Tigers, Brian Garcia, season debut. Best of luck to you, sir. You're facing the Toronto Blue Jays. You're almost 3-run dogs based on implied totals. Toronto Blue Jays, nearly 6 for a team total. They have Alek Manoah on the mound, and you talked about good pitchers. I think Alek Manoah is a really good pitcher, and his top 2 pitcher percentage is 4th best on the board. Yet his ownership is a distant far cry from that. He is the 8th most popular pitcher. I think he's a guy that I might land on quite a bit against a Detroit team that is dead last in WRC plus against right-handed pitching on the season. Neil, I got a suspicion that you're with me on this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. Alek Manoah, great matchup against the Tigers. 23% strikeout rate this year, 3.00 expected ERA, 0.97 WHIP. He's coming in at 11% projected ownership. Got to get back. 11.6% projected ownership, 13% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on the board. Feels safe against the Tigers. He's 9,400, which, is kind of expensive, but he's the 5th or 6th highest salary on the board. One of the safest pitchers. He's the 4th highest in terms of odds of being a top 2 pitcher on the slate on DraftKings, just behind Cole, Verlander, and Bieber. And he has lower ownership than all of those guys. So yeah, sign me up for plenty of Alek Manoah. I'm going to be well above the field here, I think.
Yeah, I have 24% in the crunch I did before the show, but we'll see how it kind of comes through in the wash, because the main deal about playing an Alek Manoah on a slate like this for me is it's a guy that I can find $1,000 to get to Garrett Cole, and it's not too cost prohibitive. So if you start stripping away too many of those shares, I find it to be a little problematic, but I have a lot of both of them in some lineups. Let me see how many of them I have together. 1, 2. I have a handful of them where it's still Garrett Cole and Alek Manoah. No problem with it. Oh, look how many Oakland bats I have. I'm a sick person, but here we are. I'm with you. Alek Manoah just really stands out. Detroit, not a chance in hell I'm playing a single bat there, but Toronto, we got to talk about this team. They put up 28 runs literally a week ago. So since then, it seems like all they do is hustling. All they do is hit homers and bombs and smash, except for one day, 6-1, and I bet against them. So that felt good. Way to go, Adam Wainwright. But
nice.
How do you feel about Toronto today, considering, have you looked at Brian Garcia's AAA stats? Because they are not good.
Yeah, I like Toronto a lot. I'm just refreshing my top stacks tool.
Let me tell you a little bit about our friend Brian Garcia over here. 17.6% K percentage, a 12.5% walk at AAA with a 4.87 FIP, which it's like, okay, well, that is what it is. Where did his XFIP go? Because he has one of the funniest. I mean, this is just outrageous. Let me find it. Why is it always splits? Why did it come up as splits? I don't care. Now I'm doing what you're doing, where I'm trying to stall. Let me find the thing. He had a 5.60 XFIP at AAA this year, and now he's facing the Toronto Blue Jays. Yeah. Okay, let me know how that goes.
So yeah, I would like to take batters against Brian Garcia. Particularly, I would like to take Blue Jays batters against Brian Garcia. I'm disappointed to see, so I just refreshed. Earlier, we were showing 5% projected ownership on Blue Jays stacks. It's now up to 8.2. So we've gone from one of the most positively leveraged teams on the slate to slight negative leverage. But I'm still totally comfortable playing the Blue Jays. They're just too good of a team against a pitcher making his major league debut, who was not great at AAA. I have a lot of interest in the Blue Jays here, and really everybody other than the Dodgers is coming in at reasonable ownership. So I don't mind a little bit of negative leverage on a team that still has great odds of being a top stack on the board. So yeah, definitely interested in the Blue Jays here.
It's one of those things where I look at this lineup and it's like, how does it fail? What has to go wrong here for me? And I mean, what is it about Raimel Tapia that's going to just have him? Well, he's actually going to be in my lineups. He's really low owned as it stands, 1.6%. So he'll be involved in some stacks. I guess I'm a little surprised that they're low owned as they are, because outside of Vlad and Alejandro Kirk, everybody's sub 7%. And then outside of Hernandez, everybody's sub 3.5%. So I don't know. It feels like too good to be true that we could be getting them at this kind of an ownership, but hey, I'm looking at the tools, and I think Raimel Tapia, as much as he has been my arch nemesis, so you can lock him in for a 0 now. That's for sure. because I'll actually have 5-6%, I'm sure, of him going into tonight's slate. But I think it's a pretty easy team to stack up, pretty easy to see the path to success. I am a little bit surprised they're not grading out even better than what they are. Plus their ownership share, we have them at 8.2%. I don't really know how, when you have Vlad and Kirk there as the only guys that are have any popularity from Toronto. That's it. Uh-oh. Neil has left us into the abyss. Well, we continue on. Oh, he's back.
He's back.
Okay, I can hear you again. I still cannot see you. My screen is completely black right now.
That's okay. You can hear me. That's all that matters. You have the voice of God in your ear.
It would be nice if I could use my computer again, but
that would be awesome if you could.
If I could see my stuff would be helpful.
I mean, I can tell you some stuff as we continue on. Toronto, pretty easy to see the path to success. You should be stacking them up. They have the third highest ownership share, but it's really not all that high because the Dodgers exist.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they're just, every team is coming in a little bit under owned because the Dodgers are coming in so high owned. So I do have interest, as I was saying, and it sounds like we're on the same page, just wanting some Blue Jays in our lineups.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. It's going to be pretty easy to stack them up and have pieces. And Alejandro Kirk at catcher spot is always going to be popular, but 4,700, not all that difficult. And you're getting what? At least half the ownership of a Will Smith off of that. Will Smith, 32.5%. You're getting a third of the ownership going to Alejandro Kirk. So don't mind making that my one-off at catcher in some spots and some lineups.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I'm trying to pull up my phone now, just pull up some of our Stokastic information on my phone.
Look at that. We have so many great mobile tools that'll be coming out here very shortly. Let me just say, hopefully you guys are on the text chain being able to check out some of the great tools and content before they come out. So I would be checking, that MVP code, but I'll talk about that in a little bit later here too. Let's continue on, shall we? We have other games to talk about. We got to get a little bit of, not really, we're making decent enough time. We got the Milwaukee Brewers, Boston Red Sox, Brandon Woodruff. He goes in that great pitcher bucket. Brian Bayo would go in this great pitcher bucket if this were a AAA competition where he has a 30+% strikeout rate. Does not have that in the majors. We'll talk about Milwaukee Pats next, but Brandon Woodruff, really low owned today, considering it's freaking Brandon Woodruff. How do you feel about him compared to some of the other pieces? Oh, no. Into the abyss he goes.
He gone.
All right. That's okay. I'm going to continue talking for all of you guys. We're going to make haste. It's all right. Into the abyss. I want to keep it going because I know we have a ton of baseball to talk, but Brandon Woodruff, I get that he's 10K and we have Justin Verlander and Garrett Cole. So anything where those guys with their better strikeout rates, I mean, he's got a better strikeout rate than Justin Verlander. That's for damn sure. 30.6% we're looking at for Brandon Woodruff. And I don't really find this to be that difficult of a Boston Red Sox lineup. Of course, they did get JD Martinez back, but you get Bobby Dahlbeck, Franchi Cordero, Jaron Duran strikes out nearly at a 30% clip. I am definitely going to be over the field on Brandon Woodruff. It's not that hard. It's more of a 150 type deal where you can get to 10% and know that you're getting over the field on that. But I do find Manoah to be a little bit more interesting because of how good his matchup is. You're saving some money going down to him. And salary is still a thing with some of these stacks that we want to get to that aren't the Dodgers, because they're going to be expensive, whether that's the Yankees, whether that's the top pieces of Toronto, whether that's if you want to get a little bit contrarian, getting to some of these Houston guys against Robbie Ray, but we'll talk about them next. Eric has waited his whole life for this solo moment on the show. No, I have not. I am not a Twitch streamer by any means, but I'm not a player. I just crush a lot. Let's talk to Milwaukee Pats, because I think that this is going to be a fascinating stack in terms of leverage that you're getting on this slate. 5.4% ownership share going their direction. I think it should be a little bit higher because Brian Bayo, I've been trying to vouch for this kid, but he's going to be the long reliever coming out. Austin Davis starting off for them. His 32.7% hard hit percentage should be serviceable here from the get-go. He's out there, just doing the one inning of work. And then this Bayo character, as much as I wanted to defend him, He's got around a 17% strikeout rate at the bigs here. He hasn't gotten outside of 4 innings, just gotten completely lit up. However, he hasn't given up a home run at the big league level yet. So we want to make sure that you're not going like completely crazy with this Milwaukee team, but there's a lot of power that exists. He's gone Tampa, Toronto in his 3 appearances. And do I think Bayo has a chance to be decent still as he's going on? Yes, but coming out of the pen, I got to think that he's got the training wheels on today for sure. And if he's not mowing down some of these Milwaukee batters, that he's looking at 80 pitches tops. So not going to be a shot that I take on this kind of a slate. There's a huge opportunity cost. I'm definitely not going to be going his direction with as many good pitchers as there are on this slate. But I'm looking at Brandon Woodruff as a guy I want to be overweight to, and Milwaukee bats I want to be overweight to. And then Boston on the other side, looking at their implied total, we got a 4 implied total. I'm a little surprised by that because of how good Woodruff is, his 3.16 expected ERA, his 30.6% K rate that I've alluded to now like 34 times. But I get it. This is still an offense that's potent. They still have some pieces who can do work. They're not popular. Nobody's really popular compared to the Dodgers. So if you put them in a couple lineups out of 150, I don't think you're completely crazy. I'm just not going to have any shares of any batter on this team because I think there's much better places to go on today's slate. Let's move over to Cleveland and Tampa Bay here. That's the next one that we have here on the board. Shout out to Tyler Zander behind the virtual glass, who's now riding sidecar for a solo show for me. Oh, there we go. Neil Orfield. We're going to try it. Hit me, baby, one more time.
Am I back?
Yes, he is.
All right.
From the grave.
I know. Are those minutes like the longest minutes of any show when you're just by yourself trying to stall? Yeah, I've been there. Sorry about that.
Time in a bottle.
I bought this new computer. I paid like $1,500 for this new laptop. I don't know, 4 months ago, and it has been just shit. I hate this thing.
Yeah, it sucks. I'm not gonna lie to you. Let me put you back up here. We continue. Put you back where you belong. We're going to Cleveland and Tampa Bay, my friend. That's the next game on the board. Yep. We've got Shane Bieber, Jeffrey Springs, and you could be my Silver Springs. Blue Breeze, colors flashing. Shout out to the greats, Fleetwood Mac. But I can't really get to any of him. I don't know if there's any kind of an express pitch count that's going to exist for him here. He had his one start coming off of the IL there, where he was out for basically 2.5 weeks. Came back, didn't look all that sharp there against Kansas City. Gave up 8 hits, only 2 strikeouts, but it's a 7,900 Jeffrey Springs, and he's been really good up to this point. He's at 5.8% ownership currently, and I don't know if I'm going to get to any shares, but I do want to try to find some pitchers that aren't just Patrick Sandoval, who's getting a lot of attention in this mid-range. How do you feel about Jeffrey Springs as kind of a contrarian option on this slate?
So that's an interesting point about his pitch count. I had not made that connection that might be an issue. He looks good in the top pitchers tool, so maybe we need to look into.
He had 78 pitches, and I mean, it could have just been that he wasn't very good against Kansas City. He's got a 2.5 ERA, 72 strikeouts on the season. He's really good, a 1.10 WHIP. I'm okay if you want to get to a couple shares of Jeffrey Springs, but I'm probably just going to take most of that and move it elsewhere, either above or below. I'm about at the field on Patrick Sandoval. I can't imagine that I want to get to like 30% of him. Texas's offense has been much improved, and I think we can take some shots. I don't even want to say it yet. I'm saving it for the end, but because it's at the end. But we've got Shane Bieber, who's the more pressing issue, I suppose, for this game. Second most popular pitcher on the slate today, and that is wild to me. I will be underweight to that. What are you going to do with Bieber?
I think that 30% projected ownership. I'm going to be underweight to Bieber for sure. There's just so many other great options, and Bieber coming in at a 14.6% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on the slate. Again, 30.3% projected ownership. So, I mean, it's Shane Bieber. He's a great pitcher. I'm happy to get to some Shane Bieber, but I'm definitely going to be under the field here. And honestly, if you wanted to full fade Shane Bieber, this is the kind of spot where I might consider full fading even a good pitcher, just because he's so overowned relative to his odds of being a top 2 pitcher. I'd rather get to, guys who Alec Manoah at 11%, Justin Verlander at 14%. Just so many other pitchers who are coming in well under owned. Brandon Woodruff only getting 3.2%. Just there are a lot of pitchers that are coming in far less owned than Shane Bieber with, they're not too far off in terms of odds of success. And then as far as Jeffrey Springs goes, I will say that he does look good in the top
Wait, did
pitcher stool.
Fanatics say that Jeffrey Springs hasn't been good this season? Is that what you're talking about? If you are getting banned to the shadow realm. You are absurd. He's got a 26.3% K percentage, a 5.5% walk rate. His 2.5 ERA is fantastic. I mean, again, I don't really give a shit about ERA. It's worthless. It's not even like worth talking about. But a 3.73 expected ERA, now that he's gotten more lengthened out, a 387 x Wobicon, gives up less than a 40% hard hit percentage. What meth are you on, dude?
Sleep.
Yeah, he's been good this year.
Emotional damage. I'm upset. Into the shadow realm you will go, Fanatic. If that's literally who you said I suck with. Oh, dude. Come on, man. Get out of here. I'm putting you in timeout. I don't even want to hear your excuses or bullshit. Let's go. Let's see. Sorry, Shane Bieber. I'm going to be underweight to that because I get it. Tampa Bay. They strike out. It's a great ballpark. I get all of these things. I just don't think Shane Bieber's been the one. Between him and Jeffrey Springs, who's been better this season?
Jeffrey Springs has got a higher.
Yeah, and he has the much worse. He has the much worse matchup. Cleveland, number one in terms of avoiding strikeouts in baseball. So there's that. I also will say they're substantially worse against left-handed pitching than righties. So that's kind of what we're looking at. I can kind of see the case of why people want to get to a little bit more Jeffrey Springs in that regard. Because they have 75 WRC plus against lefties. That's second worst in baseball. But I just don't want to play Jeffrey Springs today. It's not that he isn't good, though. Stop it.
No, he's been plenty good. And I actually think that I do want to play some Jeffrey Springs today. I'm re-crunching right now just because I lost my earlier crunch when my computer died down. But I'm getting to about 10% Jeffrey Springs, which is right in line with his top two pitcher odds. So I'm perfectly happy with that. I'm actually in a natural crunch without, forcing anything lower. Shane Bieber, I'm getting to 32% if I set my cap at 40% on all pitchers. So he is coming in pretty high owned naturally, just based on his projection relative to his salary. So this is a spot where I'll probably actually go in and force him to be lower, just because there are other pitchers that I like better in this spot. So this is a spot where, I'm not just going to let it happen, give me what it gives me. I'm actually going to force myself to get a little bit lower there to get higher on some of these other pitchers.
All right. I'm back. I'm good. I'm chill. I have no interest in either offense in a game with a 6.5 total, and now 7 total in some places, even though I bet the over 6.5 earlier on Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks that comes out the night before every single weekday slate. And then we might have a surprise for people coming up tonight. We've got Eitan Shander. Yes, Eitan Shander doing game-by-game breakdowns. My God, am I excited for that. I think you should be too. Check that out over on the Odd Shopper channel. But is there a single bat that you want to roster here? I suppose Jose Ramirez is a human being who can hit the ball high and far, but 5,700 in Tampa, I probably don't want to do it.
Yeah, so there's nobody. I mean, Jose Ramirez, he's coming in at 4th highest odds of being the top fantasy producer from the third base position. So
it's wild.
I think if I'm playing anybody here, it's probably Jose Ramirez. Other than that, I'm kind of with you. If you full fade this game, I think I have no issue with that.
All right, we got to make up some time. We got to get it moving here. God willing. Computer, stay intact. $1,500 computer of Neil's there. Arizona Diamondbacks, Atlanta Braves, Madison Bumgarner, Kyle Wright. Oh my God, Madison Bumgarner. Turned back the clock performance last time out, but I don't care. That is one start. And now he's going into Atlanta. Best of luck to you, sir. I'm not going to have a single share. He is terrible. Kyle Wright. I mean, we're talking about a implied total under 3.6 here for these Arizona Diamondbacks. You have 0 ownership going to Kyle Wright whatsoever, but he's got a top 2 pitcher percentage that's almost identical to that of a Jeffrey Springs, to that of a Brandon Woodruff, Patrick Sandoval. Maybe I should have more Kyle Wright, but I wasn't really getting to him before. Should I be, Neil?
Yeah, I think you probably should be. Now this is where I struggle with the conversation we had earlier about how I like to get. I'm fine going chalky with pitcher and then getting different with bats. I still sort of struggle with that concept a little bit, just because I see Kyle Wright coming in at 1% projected ownership and 10.2% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on this slate. It's hard for me to not want to get there. I get it. He's 9,200. So he's a little bit expensive. But man, it's hard for me to not want to get more Kyle Wright. And the way it's coming in now, I'm getting only 3%. I think I want to be more above the field than that. So I do think that maybe I am kind of finding myself wanting to go back to my old ways of spreading it out a little bit more and getting some more of these pitchers who I think have pretty decent odds of success. And I think this is the kind of slate where I might be inclined to do that, where I set my general pitcher cap lower at like 30% or something, just to get more of others, with the exception of Justin Verlander, of Garrett Cole. I think that I'd be, he's the one pitcher that I might want to get, close to the field on. I think a lot of these other pitchers that are chalky, I would like to come in under the field. So long story short, I think Kyle Wright looks good. He's coming in, as I said, 1% projected ownership, 10.2% chance of being a top 2 pitcher today. Those are pretty solid numbers. So it's hard for me not to like Kyle Wright here.
Yeah, there's going to be no Arizona for me. I don't think that that's going to be any kind of a hot take. But let's talk Atlanta bats, because God, they just have fluctuated now up to the second most popular team on today's slate. Toronto now behind them. New York Yankees a little bit further down the board at 4th. St. Louis now 5th, even though they were 2nd when we started the show. I keep refreshing this, and Atlanta's creeped their way up, and I think they should have. I had more interest in them a second ago when they were a little less popular. I'm still going to get to some of these bats, though. I don't know how you don't have interest in a sub 5K Ronald Acuna. What is life? What is life?
Acuna against Madison Bumgarner. Pretty good one-off there, I would say. Madison against Madison Bumgarner.
Yes, really.
They are, as a stack, they're coming in pretty over-owned, 9.8% projected ownership with a 5.5% chance of being the top stack on the board. They are not one of the first stacks I would go to, even though, the Braves, I love playing the Braves when they have positive leverage, just because they're such a dangerous team. And, Madison Bumgarner, it's not the best matchup, but it's not the worst matchup either. But if they're going to be getting 10% ownership on a 13-game slate in I'd say a mediocre matchup with Madison Bumgarner, it's hard for me to want to match the field there. I'm going to be under the field for sure on Atlanta, but I'll have plenty of one-offs, and I'll have some stacks, I think, of Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm going to get to some Dansby Swanson shortstop position. I'll have a little bit. He's pretty popular, though, now. 16%. Travis d'Arnaud, 12.4% at the catcher position is kind of what it is. You get 2 lefties in the back half in Rosario and Harris that are completely unowned. Probably should be. That's problematic. But 1 through 6, again, it's one of those things you don't have to get crazy off the board if you're not playing the Dodgers. And I think there's going to be ways to be able to still get to Atlanta. If you're going to be playing them as a 5-man stack, you're just not going to have to play the Dodgers, or you're not going to get to, because you're probably going to have just way too much overlap with other lineups that exist with that kind of a combination. But I continue on. Cola, you wanted to do like a ranking with pitchers. We'll get there as we kind of get through the rest of the pitcher board. We can do that to kind of round it out. But El Negro Loco, the news god in the chat, wanted to know, Neil, did you get the new Mac? He literally got a new one yesterday.
New Mac? No, I haven't done Macs in several years now. Maybe I need to go back to Macs. It seems like I might need a new computer again already. I've been on PCs for years now, but how's the Mac going for you, Loco?
I love
never buy a Mac. You are overpaying severely. Please do not.
What if you get a discount?
You can buy, I don't care what discount, you can build a computer that is triple the power for the same price tag, even with a discount as a Mac.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. That's stupid. Guys, Yahoo. We should talk a little Yahoo is what we should do. Tyler, I love you. I didn't mean that. I did mean that because Macs are great. But Yahoo, definitely be checking them out here. They're the sponsor, our sponsor here of the MLB Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock shows. I don't know what to tell you. We got 3 more days of a couple of promotions going. And I know for a lot of people, I'll talk about the BetMGM one to round it all out. But Yahoo Fantasy right now, my friends, some of the best contests, not just for MLB, but once it's NFL season, you're going to want to be a member over here. There's no doubt about it. If you sign up, deposit, and play over there right now, you will get 1 free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum just by checking out Yahoo, where there's low rake, some of the lowest hold in the entire industry. It's kind of a no-brainer offer to me. There's $5K to first MLB contest, $15, much more realistic to win than on DraftKings and FanDuel. A lot of really great contests with lower rake. That's why I like playing over there. And I think you'll love playing over there too. Once NFL starts, you're definitely going to want to be over there because they have by far the best NFL contest point per dollar in the entire industry. And I don't think it's remotely close. So
I cannot wait. Sorry. Go ahead. Finish.
Oh, no, you finish.
I was going to say, I can't wait for it to see what Yahoo contests are coming this year because they are my favorite every year. They just have, sometimes they have rake free. They've even had like overlay guaranteed contests where they give out more than people pay in. They have had some great contests. Every year I'm worried that it's not going to come back this year, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed, hoping that they have some great contests again.
Yes, they do. It's going to be
that promo code.
Well, there's not really a promo code. It's just simply going to Yahoo. You simply sign up Yahoo dash promo, Stokastic.com/Yahoo dash promo. It's in the link. I bet Tyler could put that into chat for the people, can't you? Or does it have to go in the description box below? Yeah, look at that. Doing the thing, putting it in the chat. Tyler Zander behind the virtual glass, by far my favorite producer from Texas that we have on staff until we get another one, in which case they will automatically become my favorite producer that we have from Texas on our staff. That's how it works. That's how it works, friends. But thank you so much to Yahoo for their sponsorship here of the Deeper Dive and the Live Before Lock shows. So great to have them a part of things that we're doing over here at Stokastic. We continue on, though, my friend. Let's play a game called Lots of Games, 24 Minutes, shall we?
Let's do it. I'm in.
All right. Next up, Seattle Mariners, Houston Astros. Let's talk some pitching. Robbie Ray completely unowned, and we know he can be good once upon a time. Still has a 27.9% K rate, but it's the Houston Astros. It makes sense why there's no ownership going that direction, but might be a contrarian option to get some shares of. But Justin Verlander needs to be the talking point here, because if you're going to pivot off of Garrett Cole, you take $100, you add it there, and you're trimming so much ownership. But this Seattle team, a lot more potent than you're looking at for Garrett Cole facing Kansas City. Talk to me about Verlander as a potential tournament option today.
Yeah, I think both pitchers in this game look great. They both have positive leverage in the top pitchers tool. Verlander coming in at 14.1% projected ownership with a 16.2% chance of being a top two pitcher on the board. As you said, it's a tougher matchup against Seattle, but the field is more than making up for that with the 48.4% ownership on Garrett Cole relative to 14% for Justin Verlander. So I would like to be over the field, over that 14% on Justin Verlander. It's an easy way to get contrarian if you want to play. I don't even know if you could play the Dodgers with Verlander. That might be too expensive. But if you're playing a chalkier stack, then I think it makes a lot of sense to choose Verlander over Cole in this spot. And then Robbie Ray is kind of in the exact same boat as Kyle Wright to me. They're both coming in at Wright's coming in at 1% projected ownership, Ray at 0.7% projected ownership, and then Wright has a 10.2% chance of being a top two pitcher. Ray has a 10.1% chance of being a top two pitcher. They are in very similar boats. Obviously, you prefer Wright's matchup, but Robbie Ray's strikeout upside is just so great. It's a tough matchup against Houston. That's kind of the only thing that I don't love about Robbie Ray here. But coming in at 0.7% projected ownership, I don't care who he's playing against. Robbie Ray is good enough to get it done. So yeah, I have a lot of interest in Ray as well. Are you going to be getting some Robbie Ray?
I'll have a little bit, but I doubt I'm going to make any kind of a pronounced stance going up against Houston. Looking at their splits against lefties, 18.8% K percentage. That is fourth best in avoiding strikeouts. That is the Houston Astros. They have a 181 ISO against that handedness. You have, the lefties that you would hope that would be gettable. Well, they're really not with Houston when they're Jordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker, also known as murderers of baseballs against everybody. It's just it's a lineup that looks kind of problematic no matter what you do, but we'll see. I might get to a little bit more. I doubt it though. I'm more inclined to take a couple shots on Houston, but not even crazy. We'll get to that in a second here. Seattle don't really have any interest going up against Verlander. I don't know how you can make that case on a day like today.
Yeah, I won't be making that case on a 13-game slate. No Seattle interest for me.
All right. So if Robbie Ray just decides to give up some hard contact, which he's been better with this entire season. So shout out to him, even better than he was during, because that plagued him throughout his days with the Diamondbacks. Last year had over a 40% hard hit percentage. He's down to a 38.8% hard hit percentage, which is still not phenomenal, but it's much better than we've seen throughout his career. My thing with him, 222 expected batting average with that 28% K percentage. There are some guys in Jordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker. I still want to try to take a shot or two on some of these bats, but it's just so difficult to imagine when the pitcher isn't going to be popular. And I know I'm going to have as many Oakland Athletics as I'm going to have coming up here in the next game or two. I don't really know if I need to be getting this off the board. How do you feel about Houston? Because we know they can be one of the best offenses in baseball against anybody.
Yeah, so I would be a lot more inclined to go to Houston than Seattle, but it's tough, man. It's really tough to really want to play a full stack of Houston against Robbie Ray. It's just a tough matchup, but they're coming in at 1.2% projected ownership with a 2.4% chance to be in the top stack on the board. I do kind of like Houston here. Robbie Ray has been kind of hit or miss throughout his career, so I think a team like Houston, if anybody can hit Robbie Ray around, I think Houston is that team. So I think I do have some nominal interest in Houston. They're not my favorite team on the board. Obviously, they have a tough matchup, but just because of that low ownership, anytime you can get the Astros at this low of ownership, I think you have to take some shots here. If you're playing 150 lineups, if you're playing 5, you don't need to be playing Houston. I might even consider them. If I'm playing like 15 lineups, I might consider a Houston stack here just because they're so contrarian in a large field GPP, of course, is all I'm talking about. I'm not playing Houston in cash against Robbie Ray, but in a large field GPP, I do think it makes some sense to go to Houston.
All right. I'm with you. Just in a large field 150, I have 2% of them, and I'm going to just keep it that way. I really don't care. Yep. We're going to have a little bit. Robbie Ray is shown to give up hard contact time to time. Hard to make the case for it too much today because we head to Oakland visiting the White Sox. And here's a very popular pitcher in one Lance Lynn. He's actually a little bit lower owned than Shane Bieber now, just slightly. He's still 28.9%, but I am very, very confused by this ownership. I don't know what games people have been watching. And I know it's a $6,800 Lance Lynn, and I know it's the Oakland Athletics. I will have this. I always hate saying absolutes like this because then if something changes, then I seem like a dick. But I think it's very unlikely I have any shares of Lance Lynn tonight. How do you feel about him going up against an Oakland team that is surely gettable, but so has Lance Lynn been gettable?
Yeah, it's tough. So, yeah, I mean, the obviously the pros for Lance Lynn are the 6,800 price tag and the matchup with Oakland. The negative is the 28.9% projected ownership. It is tough to really want to get there. I think that I will have some Lance Lynn. I'm going to be under the field. He's a spot where, I was talking about just letting Fantasy Cruncher do its thing and getting different with bats. So letting it kind of pick out my pitches for me. This is a spot where I think if I were getting to the field or above the field on Lance Lynn, I would probably cut it down. I am naturally getting to right around 20% in my crunch when I ran 500 lineups just to see what I would get. I got around 20% Lance Lynn. That is below the field enough that I would probably just let it ride. I don't think that I would cut those out just because, 6,800 against Oakland, it's tough not to kind of like that, even though he has not been great this year. Around 20% is about the number that I would be comfortable with. If it got much higher than that, I would probably do something to make sure I was limiting my shares, but I think I'm comfortable getting to around 20%.
Well, here comes the fun part because obviously we're not going to talk about James Caprillion. That's the most unnecessary dude to talk about ever. But the Oakland Athletics bats, I have a lot of, and they are the top value in our top stacks 12. Just to reiterate, Lance Lynn, we're talking top 2 pitcher percentage. The guy is beneath just about everybody that's even remotely competent on the board today. He's only got a 9.7% top 2 pitcher percentage, tons of negative leverage. He's owned 3 times that number. And then you head over to the Oakland side. They are our top value on the board. Second is the Dodgers. That's just hilarious. But Oakland, I am way above this 2.4% ownership share. I find them to be a really good 2 and 3 man type when you talk about Seth Brown, Ramon Laureano, Sean Murphy, they're batting third as a catcher. Even Sky Bolt is 2K. You get Jonah Bride, who wears second base and third base eligibility, hitting leadoff. Tony Kemp, second base outfield. Not that he's any good, but he's fast. And there you go. Lance Lynn's terrible. I find myself getting to this team a lot more than the field. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, they look great in the top stack, still coming in at 2.4% projected ownership, with a 13.6% chance of being the top value stack on the board. So yeah, I'm with you. They make a lot of sense on a slate like this, where those value stacks matter because the top end of the pitchers pitching is so good. It really helps a lot to find some of these stacks that are coming in under-owned. You made it sound like you're getting to them more as a secondary stack. Are you getting to above the field as a primary stack as well?
Both. Yeah. I had
Okay.
6%, and I'm probably going to get a little bit more just because Lance Lynn's popular. If he's going to be around 30%, I want to get to even more of these bats because those 30% of lineups tank, you climb above them. And I think it's pretty easy to know some of the batters that I really want to get to. I don't really want to play Elvin Andrus and Nick Allen. You can play the top half of the order and nobody is popular. So it's pretty easy for me. Do people understand how bad Lance Lynn has been this season? The guy has nearly a 40% hard hit percentage. Last year, had some swings and misses, only a 21.8% K rate, a 4.14 expected slugging. And I do expect his ERA to regress positively. But as it stands right now, the guy has a 6.43 ERA and a 1.41 whip. I don't really know what you want me to say. I get it. He's cheap. He's 6,800. He's facing an athletics offense that doesn't look good against usually anybody. But even still, I mean, they just swept the Astros. They're not the worst team in the history of humanity. So I don't really know what to say other than I'm playing way too much Oakland today.
Yeah, and when you add in the leverage factor, I think they make a lot of sense. I mean, just the top stacks alone, they look great, and then you add in how high owned Lance Lynn is. It definitely makes sense to me. And looking through their lineup and my exposures and my 500 crunch versus projected ownership, I'm above the field on all of them except for Jonah Bride, who's getting 7.5% projected ownership. I'm only getting to 4.5 in my 4.8% in my crunch of 500 lineup. So he's the only player in the lineup that I'm coming in slightly under the field there, but everybody else I'm getting to naturally a little bit above the field. And I think that's just a matter of the pitchers, the high-end pitchers being so good that you need some value. And these guys all project fairly well in this matchup with Lance. And so, yeah, I'm with you. I think Oakland looks great today.
Skywalker DFS. What if you're not playing 400 lineups? They're in one of my 3 max teams. So there you go. You don't need to be playing 400 lineups to get to Oakland.
And to be clear, I'm not playing 400 lineups. I'm just giving you an idea of how
no,
much.
But that's what Skywalker DFS was saying. I mean, I'm playing a lot of lineups, but still they are getting prioritized because they're going against a very popular pitcher that I think could get shelled. He got shelled at AAA. He's getting shelled now. I think we're just looking at a far regressed version. And if he ends up being successful, sweet, great. I just burned 10% of lineups. I don't really care. My buddy Minshew Wen just hitting me up. Always watching shows. I love you, my guy. Sky Bolt, you're welcome. Yeah, I'm playing Sky Bolt. Are you kidding me? Bolt of lightning. Let's go. You can't be Sky Bolt and not be good at hitting baseballs.
Yeah, it's a great name. It's a great baseball. Yeah, for sure. No,
great baseball name. Let's talk White Sox quick as we get out of here. Tim Anderson, AJ Pollock, who's 3,400. They're coming in popular. Nobody else is on this team. Or you find yourself to stacks because James Caprillion confirmed very, very bad at pitching baseballs.
Yeah, so the White Sox coming in at 2.8% projected ownership with a 3.7% chance of being the top stack on the board. It's the story of the night, right? Anybody other than the Dodgers, for the most part, you're finding a lot of positive leverage on these stacks, and the White Sox are a pretty solid stack. I would want to be above the field on the White Sox. I don't think that they are the first team that I would go to in a single entry, but I think in 5 lineups, the White Sox might be one of the first stacks I go to. I think they look really good here against Caprillion.
All right, 4 games to go, but we got to talk about this one. This one is going to take the longest of all of them. I'm pretty positive of that until we talk about Blake Snell, which will make me want to explode with my brain. But here we are. Julio Urias going up against Chad Kuhl. I can't wait to hear Terry McBride say Julio Urias as well, because it is just sexual in nature. 2.91 expected ERA for him, 24.2% K percentage. And, I sometimes have interest in getting to pitchers and cores. He's 9,800, which I think for me just takes him off the board entirely. Chad Kuhl, yes, I'm sure. I was waiting for the Sean V shout out where the man was going to talk about this complete game and, he's going to do it again against the Dodgers and yada, yada, yada. I don't care. The Dodgers just are going to show up in my lineups today. I don't know how you get away from them. And I know they scored a bazillion runs yesterday. I expected them to score a bazillion runs yesterday, but Chad Cole is so bad. And I think we just got to talk about the bats here for the most amount of time. How do you feel about the Dodgers when you know you're a game theory specialist and you know you don't want to play them at 30+% like some of these guys are projected? How do you handle it when it's by far the best spot on the board?
So what I typically do in spots like this and what I plan to do today is I'm not going to play any Dodgers full stacks, but I am going to allow them to be my secondary stack because I think that it's too risky for me to want to fade the Dodgers fully. Maybe not. I mean, I think that it's something that you could do. I think it's a reasonable choice to fully fade the Dodgers. But I think that the way I typically play it is, yeah, I'm just going to fade them as my primary stack. I'll play some Dodgers as my secondary stack and hope that, maybe some individual hitters do well enough in my lineups where my 5-man stacks go off, but that they don't do so well that the 31% of the field that has them as their primary stack crushes it. So yeah, I'm definitely not getting to where the field is on individual batters, and I'm definitely not full stacking them on a slate where they're getting 31% projected ownership, but I still am going to allow myself to have some. I know we've done shows in the past where you've talked about fully fading teams in spots like this. Is that something you're doing here today against Chad Cool?
Yeah, I'll fully fade the Padres when they're 30% owned. I'll fully fade the Seattle Mariners when they're in Coors for 30%. I'll full fade other teams. It is so hard to fade this Dodgers team, especially the primary pieces of it. Bets, you get super cheapies, and Jake Lamp batting 5th here, got 5 at bats. I mean, part of that is they were up by a bajillion, so you're not going to get the Hanser Alberto, the pinch hit spots for some of those guys there. You get salary savings though in Gavin Lux, second base outfield eligibility, but the big guys, Freeman, Will Smith, Trey Turner, Mookie Betts, they play day in, day out, and it's just too good of a spot for me to be passing up. I'm almost at the field in terms of Dodgers. I will have some 5-man Dodger stacks. I find them to be unavoidable, but I am very, very specific on what I am doing with those specific lineups because I'm not even playing teams that are remotely close to popular when I'm full stacking them.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, as Blender says, lineups not players, and I think that applies to stacks as well. You can make good lineups with Dodgers stacks. You just probably don't want the Dodgers with Lance Lynn, and you don't want to have chalky secondary stacks and chalky pitchers to go with your Dodgers 5-man stack. So there's nothing wrong with playing full Dodgers stacks. It's probably something that, as I said, I'm not going to do it, but you can totally make good lineups even with a Dodgers 5-man stack. I just would avoid, as I said, Lance Lynn. And are there any other pitchers that you would avoid having in your Dodgers 5-man stacks? Anybody in particular that you're trying to avoid here?
I mean, Garrett Cole, I think, is pretty unavoidable. He's super popular. I'll have to think about it a little bit more, but I think it's pretty easy for me to get to some Alek Manoah, perhaps, and that's going to be a guy that I just get over the field on. I'm going to play over the field Blake Snell for sure. I think there's guys like that are kind of in the mids, like 16.8% that we're looking at there. Yeah, there's some strikeout artistry there that can kind of get you up to the score of a Garrett Cole and then trim a ton of that ownership. I'm going to have to rework it a little bit after the show. I don't want to say anything concrete yet, but it totally makes sense. You want to get away from those guys that are 50% owned pitchers, but Garrett Cole feels like a little bit of an outlier today where him and Dodgers, I might actually have some of those combinations. Again, I just have to be very specific about the 2 and 3-mans that I'm putting together with those Dodger stacks.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think you probably don't want to have Shane Bieber with the Dodgers or Lance Lynn.
Right.
Patrick Sandoval looks a little bit, I don't know, probably wouldn't want to have him with the Dodgers. But yeah, you can certainly make good lineups with the Dodgers. I just think as a blanket rule, it would be easier for me to make good lineups full fading Dodgers as my primary stack. But there are a lot of ways to win at this game.
We've got really low ownership share on Colorado. I was looking at FanDuel here a second ago. They're under 1% there. You have some righties. Chris Bryant, notorious righty killer or lefty killer as a right-handed bat, doing things of that nature, but not really the shot for me in Coors Field here. They're completely unowned, which never happens really, but I think it's kind of deserved when you talk about the power suppression we've seen from Urias this season. How are you feeling about the Rockies? Anything of note?
Yeah, so I like the Dodgers here. I think they are
the Rockies.
The Rockies. In terms of top stack odds, they're coming in at 0.9% projected ownership with a 4.1% chance to be in the top stack on the board. The matchup isn't great against Urias, but if they can just, knock him around a little bit, just single him to death early on and get him out of the game in the fourth inning, then it's a Coors Field game. And at 1% projected ownership, it's hard not to like that. So I have some interest in the Rockies. They just, the positive leverage is too much for me to not want to get to some, despite the great matchup, or the terrible matchup.
Yep.
But yeah, despite the matchup, I think that the Rockies look interesting to me.
All right, we got 5 minutes. We're going to have to be flying. We're going to go a couple over, and that's just fine. But I have to throw this in there because it's the most important thing that I'm going to say this entire show. BetMGM. We got, 3 days left? 3 days left for you guys to take advantage of betting $10 and getting $200 free when you bet any money line or any bet period over on the MLB stuff for BetMGM. Follow the description box below. There is a link. You click on that. You could use promo code Lindy if you would like to. That goes to my Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks. I always feel like that would be a nice thing, even though I've never brought it up on a show every year. But promo code Lindy, that gets you $10. When you bet $10, you will get $200 free into your account when you sign up at BetMGM. Take advantage of that offer now because, again, July 31st, last day to take advantage of it. Why not take advantage of it now, my friends? We continue on, 3 games to go, and it's going to fly. We've got the Texas Rangers, Los Angeles Angels. I don't think there's really any offense to talk about here, but 2 pretty good southpaws, Martin Perez, Patrick Sandoval. One's popular, one's not, mainly because one strikes out batters, one doesn't. But one, it's a matchup against the Angels, and one doesn't. Man, look at me, just playing back and forth, back and forth. Martin Perez, I'm over the 2.2%. Patrick Sandoval, I'm just about at the field at 18% on DK. How are you feeling about the 2 pitchers in this game?
So I'm getting to 18% Patrick Sandoval and 3.4% Martin Perez, which I think is right in line with the field in both of them naturally. So I would probably go to my top pitchers tool to let me figure out where I want to go relative to the field. Martin Perez coming in only 2.2% projected ownership with a 9.3% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on the board. I have some interest in that. I think I want to be above the field on Martin Perez here against the Angels, whereas Sandoval is coming in a little bit too high owned for my liking, 18.2% projected ownership with a 10.5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on the board. So just looking at the top pitchers tool, I think my lean is to pay up a little bit to get to Martin Perez at 16% lower ownership here.
If you play Taylor Ward or Shohei Ohtani, I won't blame you. You have over a 1.4 whip you're looking at for Patrick Sandoval, but he's been much improved over the last month and a half, getting a lot of swings and misses. This Texas offense, I brought it up a lot, where they're very improved in terms of their offensive production because Marcus Semien has a pulse for the first time, it feels like, all season long for the last month and a half. So congrats to him getting a 229 average now. He's still not that good, but he's much better than what he had been. That's for damn sure. Cole Calhoun revenge spot, even if he's probably going to make the lineup still. Maybe not against lefty. We shall see. But I don't have anything really of note from the batters other than, hey, if Ward fell into your lineups, congratulations. That's just fine by me.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me from the Angels standpoint. I'm actually looking at, I think I have some more interest in Texas here just because they're getting no ownership at all. We don't have the lineup yet, so it'd be helpful to have the lineup to know who we want to play here. But even Semien coming in at 0.8% projected ownership, projected to be the leadoff batter. Corey Seager coming in at 1.1% projected ownership. I think I have some interest in Texas here. I think they're just coming in at, we have them projected for 0.9%. I'm trying to find the tab for top stacks tool. They're coming in at like no ownership, 0.8% projected ownership on Texas stacks. I have some interest here in a solid matchup against Patrick Sandoval. With so many teams going up against solid pitchers today, I think Patrick Sandoval is pretty middling, and if the Rangers are going to get 0.8% projected ownership, I would like to take advantage of that and get above the field here. 2.2% chance of being a top stack on the board, 2.7% chance of being the top point per dollar stack on the board. They allow you to get to higher end pitchers, and then also you can play some Dodgers in your secondary stack. So I do have some interest in Texas here.
All right, Minnesota Twins, San Diego Padres, Joe Ryan, Blake Snell. Joe Ryan's been awesome this season. I think the Twins can definitely go out and win this game. But you know who I think can strike out some batters from time to time? That would be Blake Snell, his 4.75 ERA. Everybody knows the Snell-evator. has not been operational all season long. There's no question about that, but I do think that there's some above average strikeouts that can exist in this lineup. And I do think we can get to some shares of Blake Snell here when we're trying to find some upside. Miguel Sano, welcome back to our lives. That's terrifying. Byron Buxton in this lineup is always a good thing for us. Yay, we can win more baseball games, but always good for the pitcher on the other side because he strikes out at a 30% clip. Gary Sanchez, Kyle Garlick leading off 24% K rate. I'm just above the field on Blake Snell, and I'm kind of confused why Lance Lynn's pulling as much ownership as he is. I get it. Shane Bieber, especially, I don't get why against Tampa Bay we just feel. I mean, we're not talking about security. We're trying to win a tournament, and I think Blake Snell has as much upside as anybody on any given day in this entire range. So, give me all the Blake Snell. How do you feel about him?
Yeah, I mean, Blake Snell looks great. The one thing that I would caution people about is playing Blake Snell in a lineup with a chalky primary stack, just because he is coming in a little bit over-owned relative to his odds of being a top two pitcher. 16.8% projected ownership, 11.7% chance of being a top two pitcher on the board. But yeah, I'm with you in that I think I'd be fine getting above the field here despite that negative leverage, just because Blake Snell has so much upside. But I would be hesitant to do it in, like, I think he might naturally make his way into a lot of Dodgers lineups just because he is relatively cheap relative to the other top pitchers on the board. So I would be a little bit hesitant to play him in a Dodgers lineup, for example, just because I think there will be so many people with that combo. But outside of that, I think that he is a good enough pitcher with enough upside that I'm happy to get to or above the field.
Now we can also get destroyed, and I'll have some, because we're Minnesota fans, probably have a couple shares. I don't know why San Diego has like a 4 implied run total here in this spot. Joe Ryan has just been freaking good, and he doesn't go working like way deep into games, but a 214 expected batting average, 36% hard hit percentage. I like what we're seeing out of him. If he can get by Machado, Cronenworth, Vogt like anybody else, he's going to have a good time here. I can't really play that much of him. He just doesn't have as much upside as other pitchers on the board, including Snell on the other side. But I don't really want to play any offenses in this game, period, outside of just the necessary Twin stacks, because otherwise I'd kick myself if I didn't play them at like 2%. But how are you feeling about the Twins and San Diego Padres as stacks?
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page as you. The Twins, they have slight positive leverage at 1% projected ownership, 2.1% chance of being top stack on the board. But I prefer taking some of these offenses that are going up against worse pitchers than Blake Snell. So I have a little bit of interest there. I'd probably have some Twins in a 150 set, but probably not in my first 10 lineups. And I think I would probably say the same thing about San Diego. 0.9% projected ownership on the full stack, 2.1% chance of being the top stack on the board. I'd get to some if I have, probably maybe they'd make it into a lineup. If I make 20 lineups, I might have one San Diego share, but they're not probably going to be in my first 5 or 10 lineups.
All right. For the love of God, hit the like button. Like, this is embarrassing. I'm an embarrassment. I need you all. We have almost 850 of you. You guys love me, right? Right?
We want
you
to see
love
that
Neil
video of
at
Eric's
least.
dad.
If you want to see the video of Eric's, I promise it is worth it. One day, my friends. But guys, smash that like button. Get us up over 200, at least 250. That would be amazing. That would be a nice way to thank Neil for battling the computer. His $1,500 non-Mac. What a waste. What a waste.
What a
I'm
waste.
kidding. Yeah, it's fine. We got one game to go. Let's get out of here. We're going to fly. Marcus Stroman, Alex Cobb. I have no offensive interest, so that kind of makes it a little bit easier. But any interest in a 12% owned Alex Cobb? Because this is a guy that it's at 6,700. Looks like I could just play him instead of one Lance Lynn and be a lot happier with my life. He's also been extremely unlucky in this Cubs lineup. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I mean, I'm assuming it's not going to be watered down. These guys are going to get traded eventually, but what's your Alex Cobb interest here to close out the show?
Yeah, so you named it. He's coming in at 17% lower ownership than Lance Lynn. He's $100 cheaper in salary. They have basically the exact same top 2 value odds. He has slight negative leverage in terms of odds of being a top 2 pitcher, but yeah, overall, Alex Cobb, I'm happy to eat some Alex Cobb at 12% if I get to or above the field. I think that I'd rather have him than Lance Lynn. So yeah, I'm with you. I like Alex Cobb here.
Mikey, yo, can someone explain how Ryan is good? It's pretty easy. He's fucking good. That's my explanation. He's good at pitching baseballs.
Yeah, that's about it. 3.35 expected ERA, 22.3% strikeout rate, 1.05 WHIP. Just the numbers support it. He's a good pitcher, and he's a rookie. He's only going to get better. I don't know. What more do you want from a rookie pitcher?
I don't know. I feel like I'm just getting trolled today. So I'm going to get out of here. Neil Orfield, you're the absolute man. I guess San Francisco and Chicago, we don't have any offense to talk about, do we? There's a 4.1 implied total, but San Francisco pinch hits everybody on a 13-game slate. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Tyler Zander, thank you so much for doing an amazing job on this show. He's Neil Orfield. He did an amazing job. He's the host of the High Stakes podcast. You definitely want to be checking that out. Season 2 coming soon here to Stokastic. Looking forward to that. But any final words for the people, my dude?
No, let's go win some money. It's a 13-game slate. Don't play only Dodgers. Play some other teams too.
All right. He's Neil Orfield. He's awesome. I'm Eric Lindquist. I'm okay. We'll see you guys later. Happy weekend, everybody.
is going on, guys? It is the Stokastic MLB Live Before Lock show. I'm here with Terry McBride. We've been hanging out together on Fridays. And Tyler, who do his eyes look a little funny to you? I can't put it together, Terry, but
I'm not sure what it is. Yeah, it looks a little glassy. He's giggling too. I'm not sure why. Like, we didn't say anything funny yet, so I'm not sure what he would do.
It's just baseball. You know how fucking funny baseball is. You gotta laugh a bit. What's funny than some batting balls around here and whatever his glaucoma issue is. Who am I to who am I to judge? But if you guys didn't like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel while you were watching Eric and Neil, I get it. Totally reasonable. Now's the time to do it. Give all the credit to Terry, and I like the video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel right now. And you know, we've got a big slate today. There's a lot of games, but the ownership is very oddly concentrated. At pitcher, we've got a whole bunch of ownership, and it's pretty similar on DraftKings and FanDuel in terms of what the chalk is. So just kind of an overlay of the slate for the people. On DK and FanDuel, for that matter, if people are paying up for pitching, they're going to Garrett Cole. If people are spending down at pitching, they're going to Lance Lynn. And then at offense, everybody's rostering the Dodgers. That's more or less how the slate shakes out. We've got some other teams too. They're picking up some ownership, not quite as much as what the Dodgers are seeing, but we've got, the Blue Jays. They're pretty popular. Got some ownership going to the Braves against Madison Bumgarner. So Terry, just kind of overview. What are your thoughts on this slate as we just look at it from a broad sense?
I was almost going to cut in there and just say like, yeah, that's basically the slate top to bottom. Well done. See you later. Good luck, everybody. Because everybody's going to Garrett Cole. Everybody's going to Lance Lynn on the cheaper side. Like we were talking about pre-show, I think that opens up a ton of spots around a lot of these other pitchers, some of whom are premium ace caliber guys like Verlander, like Bieber. You can argue that Alek Manoah is in that category, and it's certainly a great matchup for Alek Manoah at very low ownership. I think Joe Ryan is very interesting for a very cheap price on the FanDuel slate, same price on the DK slate. So there's a lot of spots to spread around some of that pitching ownership if you're not overloading on Cole and Lance Lynn, which I think is the right approach to this slate. So I think it's super interesting from that perspective. And then I've got some interest in a couple of the teams that are in, potential weather spots. I don't think we're going to deal with any weather. And then it kind of flattens out in terms of where the offense looks like it might be coming from and being able to get away from the public, like we were talking about before the show. So really, really interesting slate to me.
Yeah. So just so people are aware, the spot that we have our eye on right now, or at least I do, is the St. Louis Washington game. Is that also what you're eyeing, Terry?
That's the spot that really concerns me. It doesn't look like radar wise. It's just like a little, block for like an hour of rain, but we've seen this team cancel when their radar looks cleaner than this. So I'm a little concerned. Some of the other places have it like yellow, orange, et cetera, et cetera. So nobody's really saying like, hey, scratch this game, take it off your list. It doesn't look terrible on the traffic cams that I pulled up. So like, I think we're okay, but this is the most weather sensitive team in the game. So it's a lingering concern because St. Louis is number 2 in my power index. I really like the spot against Anibal Sanchez. So I do think it's an interesting spot to go to. It's just that weather concern. And then the top team in my power index is Atlanta, who is also seeing a little bit of weather, but I'm a lot less concerned there.
Not the Dodgers?
In terms of the home run index? No. Dodgers
okay. I got you.
Looks like 5.
All right.
So,
I mean,
that's just the pure home run average, not the overall stat quality.
So I have this kind of general, I don't know if we call it a theory, but just kind of a talking point about Coors Field is it's the best hitter's park in baseball, clearly. And maybe people aren't aware that in terms of home runs, it's not as good as other parks. But here's where I think it makes up for that anyway. Everybody gets more at bats in the game because there's so many hits and runs scored because the park is massive that you just get guys with extra opportunities. So the home runs even out over time anyway. Like you just get the more home runs hit, even if it's more of a doubles and triples park than home runs park. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's a huge ballpark. And that's what a lot of people don't take into account is that, a lot of the run creation just comes from the sheer size of the park. So when you're looking at it, sometimes the home run totals get knocked down, but like looking at the Dodgers, they've got 5-6 of the top projected players in my model, just in terms of like raw fantasy point projection. So they're right there, or as a team total from top to bottom, honestly, because the bottom end, that's the more important factor here. The bottom end guys like a Trace Thompson, like a Cody Bellinger, like a Max Muncy at the back end of this batting order are pulling similar projections to what top end hitters from other lineups are. So that's really where it gains the advantage. The key guys at the top, the Mookies, the Trey Turners, that they're going to get big projections, but it bumps guys like Muncy and like Trace Thompson. Since they're so good, it bumps them up a lot, but it's not necessarily related to the home runs. So it does inflate the fantasy scoring here. So obviously, key spot on the slate. That said, so much ownership there. What are you doing with it? Do you have an approach to the Dodgers today?
Yeah, different than what I normally do. It's actually the same thing I did yesterday with the Dodgers. This is really typically not how I go about building my baseball lineups, but I'm more apt to be chalky at offense today and then differentiate some of the pitchers because I love the contrarian pitching spots today. And that just makes me feel better about like, hey, if I really like some of these lesser owned pitchers, which we're going to talk about in a second, I could load up on the Rockies or on the Dodgers against the Rockies today, Coors Field. And it was the same as yesterday when Eric and I were doing live before lock. And it was like, I'm going to play Ohtani. And I knew I wanted to play the Dodgers also. And then there was just some secondary pitching options where it was like, all right, let's take shots on like Spencer Howard and Cutter Crawford and some other cheap guys that the field isn't rostering. and I could play some of the other chalk spots I like and still feel like I have different lineups. And that's what I'm going to be doing again today. And starting with the pitching option, we've got Garrett Cole at 10,400 against the Royals. It's a great spot. He's 10-4 on DK. He's 11,000 on FanDuel, but it is so much ownership going to him on a slate that is a lot of really good pitching options. 30% owned on DK, 30% owned on FanDuel, nearly 50% owned on DK, where we have these other pitchers at the high end that I just think make a whole lot of sense. Justin Verlander is a fraction of the ownership. Alek Manoah, a fraction of the ownership of Garrett Cole. And I just don't understand why people aren't on these pitchers in a bigger way. So I just find that to be the easiest and most sensible ways to differentiate my lineups. So what are you doing with a really chalky Garrett Cole, who I think is a great cash game option? I think he clearly has upside, but I just think there's other guys that are really comparable for a fraction of the ownership.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's some of the guys that you named, and then there's some guys that are cheaper that have a lot less ownership that we can go to. So there's a lot of good pitching pivots here. I do like the spot for Garrett Cole. The Royals, not necessarily the most targetable lineup in baseball in a lot of ways, but this year against right-handed pitching, just 15th in baseball, dead middle of the league, 21.7% strikeout rate. They're not hitting for power. They're not really creating runs, 9% below average creating runs against righties. They do get Salvi Perez back from the IL, so that's a big bat to add back to the middle of this lineup. Something noteworthy for people who are going super contrarian and trying to stack Royals against Garrett Cole. I would not skip Sal Perez in that lineup. But to me, if you're going to this spot, it's all about the Cole side of the equation. It's just a matter of how much do you want to deal with the field there. And I think given all those other options, I want to definitely carve off a nice chunk so that I can still spread it around while still having some Cole. So if the field's at 30% on FanDuel and I'm at 18 to 20, something around there, even 15, I'm fine being at 15. I don't know that I'd want to go much lower than that. I certainly wouldn't want to full fade the spot because I do expect Garrett Cole to have a nice start here. So a key spot, definitely, given the weight of public ownership there. Let's go with like a 4-run output from the Royals, shut Garrett Cole down so he doesn't strike out too many guys, but the Yankees still win here. Go Yanks.
Yeah, it is less like, I'm not going to argue that's not a good spot for Garrett Cole. If I personally am loading up on the Dodgers, which I am doing, I can't really justify while playing a lot of Cole. And that's where I get some of these other pitchers. And one that really stands out to me that you and I briefly mentioned before the show started, I love Alek Manoah today. This is my favorite tournament play on this slate. I just don't get the ownership. I understand that his strikeout rate isn't the same as guys like Verlander and Cole, but Manoah is $9,400 on DK, projected for 12% ownership against the Tigers. This is the easiest matchup possible. Right-hand pitcher going up against the Tigers. It's been a free square the entire season, especially when you get a pitcher the caliber of Manoah. The Tigers' strikeout rate, really high against right-hand pitching. Their WRC plus against right-hand pitching, sub 70. Like, they're just the worst offense in baseball against righties by such a wide margin that I'm totally confused why the field is not going to Manoah in a bigger way. And the same holds true on FanDuel. 10,200 is projected for 4% ownership. Like, what am I missing here? The people on rostering Manoah.
I do not understand it. It's one of the more confusing spots on the slate to me. And if the field wants to leave it there, I'm happy to scoop it up. And you can 3x Manoah easily enough on FanDuel. He's 4% owned. You can go to 12, 15% on that pretty easily at 10-2. And like you said, it's in one of the best possible matchups in baseball. The Tigers active roster has a 103 ISO, 30th ranked in baseball, 24.1% strikeout rate is 27th against righties, a 1.76% home run rate is 29th against righties. There's 65 WRC plus against righties for the active roster is 30th. So these are not good rankings. This is not a good lineup. Manoah this season, 23% strikeout rate over 120 and 2/3. Last year, 27.7. So we know that he's got a little bit more strikeout upside, and throwing him up against a heavy strikeout team like this, I see no reason he couldn't go out there and put up a nice strikeout total. So I like the spot a lot. I'll definitely be looking to get there aggressively.
Yeah. And when he makes a good point, I'll bring it up. Sean V says that Manoah has a low K rate versus lefty. It's true. He's been significantly better against righties than lefties, but we have to also consider the lefties that are in this Tigers lineup.
Lefty in a lot of ways.
Their cleanup hitter is a lefty, but it's Harold Castro. This is garbage, the lineup. And then you've got the other guys who are in the lineup towards the tail end, the lefties, like Akil Baddoo. He was terrible after a decent start to last year. Then it's other guys, Willie Castro. He homered yesterday, did good things for me in my single entry lineup, but in general, he's no good. John Candelario, also switch hitter, not particularly great. Victor Reyes, I guess he's all right, but these are not
Tucker
high end left
Barnhart,
hand.
switch hitter. Yeah, 30% strikeout rate on him in the back of the lineup. Yeah, it's not something to be concerned with.
Right. So cool. Like I get it. He is worse against lefties, but the lefties have to be of somewhat decent caliber, and they just aren't. That's why the Tigers been so bad against right-hand pitching this year. We got a super chat from our guy, Jorge Giacomi, and we're going to talk more about the pitchers in a second. But first, just to answer Jorge's question here, thoughts on a Philly stack versus the Pirates today after yesterday's good Philly game? So if I remember correctly, it was Zach Thompson who was starting for the Pirates yesterday, and he's terrible. Yeah. You know, I think Jose Quintana has been shockingly decent this year. Like his numbers are very mediocre, but it was not what I was expecting from him going into the year. I thought he was going to be a really crappy starting pitcher like he's been the last few years. And the other issue that I have with the Phillies here is they're kind of picking up some ownership. This isn't a totally unowned offense. We're getting that 1 or 2% ownership. Okay. But we're looking at 4.5% on DK. And if I'm not mistaken, Jorge usually asks DK questions, but I'll read off the FanDuel number too, just in case that's not the case, but also on FanDuel, 4.5% ownership. So, more or less the same on both sites with 3% top stack odds. So I prefer looking elsewhere. And like I said, also personally, the way I'm playing this slate, I'm playing the chalk at offense. I'm differentiating a pitcher, not an offense I really have all that much interest in the Phillies, especially when they're traveling to Pittsburgh, ballpark downgrade. Is this an offense that you're getting to, Terry?
I mean, Nick Castellanos is 2,300 on FanDuel, pulling nearly 12% ownership. So the ownership is there, but I mean, that's a good price for a hitter like Nick Castellanos. I know he's having a terrible season, but I kind of don't care when he's that cheap. So I might end up with some shares of like a Schwarber, Hoskins, either Bomer, Real Muto, Castellanos kind of a lineup. I don't like the back end of this lineup from 6 down. So I wouldn't be really looking to overload. It's not a spot I'm targeting, but if I end up with, 5-6 shares of them across 150 lineups, I wouldn't be surprised, and don't hold it against me out there. But yeah, not a target spot by any means. Quintana definitely been a little bit better than I expected so far this season.
Got another super chat here that I'm confused by.
Uh-oh.
Cyber real estate. Baseball sports Shakespeare question. What's so special about a baseball player that arrive at 2100 military time over the baseball player that's scheduled to produce at 2000 dinero?
What's so special about the baseball player that arrive at 2100 military time over the baseball player that's scheduled to produce at?
Did he enjoy some of the same stuff that Tyler
Google?
Before the show?
No, dude. I think it was a Google Translate somehow, and I don't know, man. That is the most confusing question I have ever read in my life, and that's not saying much. I know, but
Shakespeare wouldn't have been talking about military time, so I'm losing it at military time.
He wouldn't be talking about baseball either. The
whole or dinero.
I don't know how to respond to this. I'm at a loss for words. I don't know. Maybe there's a certain threshold where you do a certain amount of drugs and the question starts to make sense, but I'm not there. So I don't know.
Experiment with that later on tonight and get back to everybody on tomorrow's show.
All right. Let's read this one more time and see if I could pull anything from this. Baseball, sports.
Kobe in chat. Shakespeare was an NFL guy, my dude. That's pretty funny.
What's so special about the baseball player that arrive at 2100 military time over the baseball player that's scheduled to produce at 2000 dinero? No fucking clue, man. But thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it.
We appreciate that, Tim. If you want to clarify for free, go ahead.
Another super chat from Nick Engel here. One lineup on FanDuel. Is it dumb to fade a Dodger stack? Right now, I have a 4-3 Toronto stack with bets as a one-off of Manoah at pitcher. Thoughts on that build? Honestly, with the ownership we have on Manoah right now, if you're playing him on FanDuel, I don't think you have to be too concerned about the ownership on the Dodgers because he's only 4% owned. You're cool to make a Dodger stack with Manoah. Terry, would you agree that if you're playing Manoah at pitcher, like I don't think we're that concerned about offense ownership?
Yeah, I become a lot less concerned about the popularity of some of those Dodgers. And then especially if you can get to, like, if you loop a Cody Bellinger at 14% ownership in there and get a little bit different than the field, or even Gavin Lux 22%, just dip down from the highest owned guys. I think it makes some sense to go that route. You're certainly not dumb if you do skip it. Just make sure you're going to high-end stacks. The Blue Jays, excellent offense. They're not rating out as one of my top targets, but I wouldn't really begrudge anybody that. But yeah, I think if you're going to Manoah, you can just go right to that Dodgers team and not really sweat the ownership too much.
All right, we got a follow-up from Cyber Real Estate, and he said
Okay.
salary cap. God damn, that doesn't help me at all.
Salary cap.
Is this a
just
riddle?
Mystifying.
Is he like a DC villain and we're trying to solve some riddle here and then some bridge is gonna blow up soon?
He's from Roto Grinders and he's just trying to derail us entirely. I think that's what's going on here. Is just have us not talk about baseball and just worry about this the entire time.
Try to guess his name. Try to get, maybe it's like a Rumpelstiltskin type deal. I don't know what's happening here.
Like what happens if I read the first letter of each sentence? No, it doesn't do anything either. It's all one run long. It's one long run on sentence.
That's not going to help anything. Calendar Man. I like that. Yeah. Marshall
All right,
Wright is Calendar Man. The
All
worst
right.
Batman.
Our friend here. If you have Cyber Real Estate, you don't have to give us another super chat. If you just want to write in the YouTube chat, just to follow up to this, beyond just me wanting to answer your question appropriately, I'm genuinely curious. Like I need to know this. If I don't find out what you mean, I'm not going to sleep for days because this is going to bug me forever. I need to know this. I won't think about anything else the rest of the show. It's Mitch's brother. Are you aware of my online spat with this guy from some other betting site?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I missed
He blocked me on Twitter. So the short end of this is that he commented on one of Eric's videos that he does a picks video and they do a picks video at his YouTube channel as well. So he thinks he has like proprietary rights. Nobody else is allowed to pick winners of baseball games because that's his thing. So he's coming on Twitter and he's calling us frauds and all that. I start to look into this guy. It turns out he owns two different betting sites, and what he does is he'll like Yankees are playing the Royals. He'll bet the Yankees on one side and Royals on the other side. So I found that information out, and he immediately blocked me once I figured that out.
Not surprising. That's the new version, I guess, of the old like phone in for the picks scam, because they used to do that exact thing. It would be, phone in for this week's NFL picks and you're giving half one way and half the other way over the phone. And then you whittle down your audience each week, but you're giving guaranteed wins to, some people.
All right. We got to follow up. By the way, I appreciate it. Cyber Real Estate, you didn't have to make this another super chat. But salary cap 2,100 versus 2,000. Why not this player be a 2,000 salary cap, sometime outperform 5,000 salary? Okay.
Because baseball weird.
Yeah, that's the baseball unpredictable. Weird things happen in baseball. So this is also inherently what's different about MLB DFS compared to something like NBA DFS.
Yeah, very much so.
Right.
And it's a key concept that a lot of people miss too.
Barring injury, there is not going to be a slate where LeBron James scores 0 fantasy points. No. The odds of the Lakers playing a game where a backup point guard outscores LeBron James, it's almost never going to happen. Baseball, where it's a limited sample size and somebody gets, 3-4 plate appearances, a lot of weird random things could happen and anybody get a home run at any point in time, which is also why, and this slate's a horrible example for this because I'm playing chalkier offenses. But pitching is way more stable in baseball than offense, which is why I typically like to go a little bit different with my offenses, and I'm more apt to play chalk pitching. Today's a little bit of an inverse because I do think the Dodgers are that safe of a team against Chad Kuhl. Like I think that their expected run output is so much higher than any other team, and I am looking to differentiate a little bit more at pitching. But yeah, to answer the question that I think Cyber Real Estate is asking us, there's a lot of randomness in baseball. It's really hard to project an average amount of fantasy points and expect that's what it's going to be. If you're playing something like basketball, most of the times, like LeBron scores around 55 fantasy points, so that's his projection. He's going to be in that neighborhood. Sometimes there's going to be outlier games, but in general, not. Baseball, it's very rare that somebody actually produces close to their mean.
Yeah, basketball, the best way in my mind to think of it or explain it is basketball is rates over time, right? Over a given 30 minutes, the 36 minutes, let's say for basketball, this guy is going to produce between here and here in each one of these categories, which is going to add up to between here and here in fantasy points, no matter what. You can't say that at all about baseball. Mike Trout, best player in the league, can go out and go 0 for 5 any given night. And he does a frequent amount of the time go 1 for 5 with an irrelevant base hit, 2 for 5 with 2 irrelevant base hits, the total 9 fantasy points, and don't get you what you need. But you're looking to zero in on those best upside plays when they are low owned, positively leveraged, where you can, by virtue of A, spreading out across 150 lineups, and B, targeting the best possible spots, you can capture some of that, that wave of upside and positive leverage against the slate. So it's very, very different the way it operates. Baseball's very event-based and random, where basketball has expectation. Football has expectation of, given this many touches, this running back is going to produce between here and here. So it's just a very different sport.
Yeah. And one follow-up from Cyber Real Estate Chat. 2,100 salary, be have mega points. It's crazy. Yeah, sometimes cheap guys homer, and that's also why it's generally pretty easy to spend up at pitchers. But let's get back to the other pitchers. And in terms of the spend up options, Terry, who are your favorite guys to pivot off of from Garrett Cole? So if you're getting off of Cole and looking to pay up, my personal choice is Manoah as my favorite. We're saving a little bit of salary, saving a whole bunch of ownership. He's about a fourth of the ownership compared to Cole. Who is your favorite pivot on the high end?
Yeah, so I think Manoah makes a ton of sense. I think we agree about that spot just based on the matchup. It's just so strong. But I also think Justin Verlander looks like he's in a very good spot. I mean, he's Justin Verlander. It's a tougher matchup against Seattle. They're a good lineup, but I'm confident in Justin Verlander, his strikeout rate. Shane Bieber, you mentioned him earlier, going up against the Rays again, tougher matchup than what Manoah gets, but he projects out fine for me. He's drawing lower ownership, so I'm fine with going to either one of those spots. And I think Kyle Wright is interesting going up against Arizona. He's projecting actually pretty nicely for me. And he's another guy that's just kind of slipping through, very low owned, 0.5% owned on FanDuel, 1.5% on DK. I'm happy to get to some additional shares of that as well. Maybe a little bit pricey for the name brand, but I don't really sweat the Diamondbacks matchup here. So I can get to that spot too.
Yeah. And then there's also one other kind of weird, super popular spot to me is Shane Bieber. And this is more so on DK than FanDuel, because FanDuel is priced up to 10,600. 8% ownership for Bieber does still feel a little rich to me. On DK against the Rays, he's projected for 28% ownership. That is a no thanks for me. Like, I would much rather, if we were taking salary and ownership out of the equation and just saying, who would you rather play, Manoah or Bieber? My answer would be Manoah. And Manoah is less than half the ownership of Bieber. Bieber's on the road against Tampa Bay. Manoah's at home against the Tigers. That's another player who I could just short the ownership on and feel like I could differentiate my offenses a little bit. I do not like Shane Bieber at nearly 30% ownership.
Yeah, I didn't notice that he was pulling quite that much ownership on the DK slate. It's one of those spots where I'm actually interested in him more for 10-6 on FanDuel, where he's only pulling 7% ownership. I can pay that tax to get him at a little bit lower ownership. It is still Shane Bieber, 24.3% strikeout rate on the season, a 13.8% swinging strike rate, going up against a team that definitely can strike out. So I don't mind that all that much when he's lower owned, but yeah, pulling that much ownership, I would just rather put those shares into other spots where nobody is, like you were just saying on the DK slate.
Yeah, and a follow-up here from Nick Engel, a super chat. He's saying, if you were me in the 444 monster on FanDuel, would you play the Dodgers since you have Manoah at starting pitching? That's what I'm doing my single entry lineups today. So if you're doing that, then we're on the same page. So yes, that is absolutely what I would recommend, because I'm only playing on DraftKings today, not FanDuel and DK, but that's what I'm doing on DK. So
I didn't get tempted by that 444 100K to first FanDuel tourney.
What's that?
You didn't get tempted by that 444 100K to first FanDuel tourney?
It's really hard for me to manage playing on multiple sites when I'm hosting the show.
True.
And so sometimes DK, sometimes FanDuel. Every once in a while, if it's a smaller slate, it's easier to play on both. But for me, I just played on DK today.
Yeah. To answer that, I hand built one of my entries in that before the shows, and that's kind of my placeholder right now. And I actually went to an even cheaper pitcher who we'll get to, I'm sure, in this next segment, who I mentioned at the top of the show, and then stack some chalky bats that I mentioned from a team that I talked about. So without giving away too much of my lineup, that's not exactly the angle I went to what this person brought up, but I don't dislike what they're saying there. It's a very small tournament. I think it's 700 entries. So you make 1-2 small pivots and you're different than the field.
So let's talk about some of those cheap pitching options, and the one that is going to reign supreme in terms of where the field is going to, and a guy who I'm already seeing some questions being asked about in chat is Lance Lynn, who is very popular on both DraftKings and FanDuel today. He was a finalist when the AL Cy Young last year. He's really cheap today. He has a great matchup against the Oakland A's. I understand why people are getting to him. This feels a lot to me, though, like when Yusei Kikuchi was uber chalk against the A's about a month ago. There's obvious potential for upside here. It's just too much ownership for me. Lance Lynn at 6,800. He's projected for 28% ownership on DK. Over on FanDuel, he's projected for just under 20% ownership at 7,500. Lynn has sucked this year. I get the A's have sucked also. And the most likely scenario here is probably that Lance Lynn pitches a serviceable game, but I still think he's too popular. And in the nature of the way my lineups are being built and me trying to differentiate a pitcher, I think this is one of the easier ways to cut out ownership and go elsewhere, because Lance Lynn this year has a 6.43 ERA. He's a 4.29 expected ERA. His velocity is way down this year. His strikeout rate is dipped from 27.5% to 21.8%. He's 35 years old. I have a lot of concerns about a pitcher who's this age, coming off a significant injury and has a big decrease in velocity. So is he a good points per dollar play? Yes, but I'm going to look elsewhere where I'm saving salary at pitcher. But how are you handling a chalky Lance Lynn who's really been awful this year, Terry?
Yeah, so I, in general, like Lance Lynn, or have in years past, like Lance Lynn, succeeded with him. I think the A's are one of the more targetable teams in baseball. I've been throwing pitchers at them pretty much all season. But this is just too much ownership, really. I don't think that it's warranted to get that over the field or that much Lance Lynn in your lives when you've got an option like Manoah going up against a worse team at a much lower ownership rate. So, I mean, just figure out a way to pay up. The difference is there in salary, certainly, but I think there's just too much weight of public ownership there where I can jump to a different pitcher. Like I said before, I've got my eye on another cheap pitcher, or at least, somewhat in this range pitcher price wise. And I think there are other value options on the board that are somewhat interesting, like on DK, 6,800 for Lance Lynn or 6,700 for Alex Cobb going against the Cubbies. That's kind of an interesting and somewhat equivalent pivot in my mind. So just get a little bit different. I agree. It's a great spot. I would have some, but I would definitely look to be below the field on both sites here. He projects out great for me. It's not a projection argument, not a spot argument. I agree. I think he could go out and put up a very nice start. It's just, I want to be away from the field. I don't want that much of the field, because that's going to also lead you into the exact same constructions hitter wise and stack wise. When you're getting the pitcher at that price, it's going to walk you down a very specific road if you're just firing it through the optimizer too. So you're going to end up with a lot of similar lineups if you use Lance Lynn here.
Yeah. And then I'm also curious, what do you have for a strikeout projection on him? Because I think his sportsbook number is pretty lofty. I bet the under this morning. His over under for strikeouts is set at 6.5. Considering what we've seen from Lynn this year, that seems fairly high to me.
He's projecting out at 7.08 for me, so a little over 7. So, I mean, it's there in the projection, but I don't know if I totally buy that based on what he's been this year, because there's some of, the old 27.5% strikeout rate Lance Lynn from last season in that number. So I don't fully trust it. If you're making a bet on it, it's too close for comfort for me.
Yeah. And then something else, because I know that you, like myself, like to look at the Zips and Steamer projections. They do have around a 25% strikeout rate, which does feel a little high for me going forward, considering the deterioration of talent. And that's one thing that's really hard for projection systems to pick up on, is you've got a guy who's coming off a big injury and then something like a velocity dip. I do think projections going forward are a little bit too high on Lance Lynn. But now when we talk about the low end of pitcher, similarly to what we just talked about when it came to Garrett Cole, if we don't like Lance Lynn that much for salary saving, who do you like as a pivot to save salary with a pitcher?
So at the exact same level, like I just mentioned before, for DK purposes, I think you can just jump over to Alex Cobb for a little bit of, of upside there against the Cubbies. 6,700. He's 100 cheaper than Lance Lynn, lower owned. The guy I'm targeting, though, from the value tier, or what I consider the value tier, $8,700 Joe Ryan, I think is a spot that people are just really sleeping on. He's been very, very good all season, 22.3% strikeout rate. He's got a 4.63 xFIP. I'm all right with that. He's got he's a good young pitcher who can rack up a decent amount of strikeouts against a heavy strikeout team like the Padres here. Jorge Alfaro in the lineup, 33.6% strikeout rate, a 32% rate on Luke Voit, 24.4% on the back end for Trent Grisham. So there are strikeouts to be found here. They're a low producing lineup. I think it's a good spot for Joe Ryan. I'm excited to get over the field on 0.5% of ownership here.
Yeah, but the chat is, I feel like I'm in an alternate dimension. I don't understand what anything's being talked about. Like I'm confused by the super chats. Just the regular is English not language first anymore. Like I don't really know what's going on, but yeah, quite the scene in chat today. By the way, Terry, the
Yes,
tools
sir.
we have on the site, very valuable. If I told you there's a way to get them for free, would that interest you at all?
Yeah, I think there would probably be a lot of value in that.
So here's the way you could do it and
How about
get
that?
access to all our tools for free. We have a partnership with Yahoo Fantasy. It expires July 31st, though. Today is July 29th. So 2 days from now, July 31st, this offer is going to end. And this is what you do. If you sign up for Yahoo using the link in the description box below, you are going to get 1 free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum package. You just have to be new signing up to Yahoo. And that's it. All you have to do is sign up using the link below. You make a deposit over on Yahoo and you get 1 free month to our tools. And you get access to stuff like the top pitchers tool, top stacks tool, everything you need to make some money in the rest of the summer playing MLB DFS. So it's an easy deal. You're signing up at Yahoo. You got a good place to play DFS. And then you use our tools, make some money over at Yahoo. Win-win. Wins all around. So if you guys have wanted to get access to our tools and want to know the cheapest way to do it, free is the cheapest way. So sign up over at Yahoo using the link in the description box below. Getting back to pitching, and I want to bring up one other guy who's more of a DK specific play. And I don't have that much interest in Martin Perez on FanDuel because he's considerably more expensive. So I just want to ask how you feel about him over on DraftKings, Terry, because 9,600 on FanDuel, it's a steep price for him. But on DK, where number one, we have to roster 2 pitchers, but also number 2, he's considerably cheaper. $8,400 Martin Perez at 2% ownership against the Angels. Does that sound like an interesting value option to you?
I think it's interesting enough. I mean, Perez 20.8% strikeout rate this season, 8.5% swinging. He's not going to go out there and blow away the average team, but these guys strike out pretty aggressively. They've been a targetable team in recent weeks and months. So I don't think it's an awful spot by any means. 24.6% strikeout rate against lefties for the Angels so far this season, 16% below average creating runs for the active roster, back end bottom 10 home run rate, bottom 10 ISO. So yeah, I think it's a targetable enough spot. He's cheap, he's low owned. So that's an interesting pivot spot. 8,400, kind of puts him more on that Joe Ryan tier than on the extreme Lance Lynn kind of a tier at 68 or the Alex Cobb tier. But yeah, I think that's from that range. That's definitely a playable spot.
Yeah. And I'll also close by saying Alex Cobb, $6,700 compared to $6,800 for Lance Lynn. We have a higher projection on Alex Cobb. He rates out better in our top pitchers tool. He has a better value percentage. He's a better chance of being a top scoring pitcher on this slate. And he has less than half the ownership. I love that pivot going from Lance Lynn to Alex Cobb. Any other points for you at pitcher? If not, we'll make our way over to offense. And sorry, one more thing. I know a lot of people are sitting here going, why did they spend so much time talking about pitcher today? I just think there's a lot more interesting pitching talking points today than offense. It's a lot more important to my decision-making for this slate, talking about pitcher than offense. That's why I went and did it this way. But any other pitchers you want to mention before we move to the stacks, Terry?
And we also got derailed by a Sphinx riddle in the middle
That's
of the
true
show
as well.
Guy that's projecting out like in the upper third that I don't necessarily totally believe in, Miles McCullough against the Nationals here. Nats are a team that, not really strike fear into the heart, but he's a fairly low strikeout guy, but he's on the board there. He's in that mid-range on the DK slate where he's 8,800. I don't think I would go to him at 9,400 on FanDuel. Just like I said, I don't believe in it all that much. And I'm similarly getting a little bit of a bump from Marcus Stroman, who's also cheap going up against the Giants. Giants have been somewhat targetable for strikeouts and everything the last couple of weeks as well. They've been popping some pitchers up to the top. So he's another one that's just kind of a low owned oddball that's sitting in the upper range of my projections. Not a target for me. Again, not a spot I'm going to get too excited or over the top on. I like the other guys we've talked about better, but at least, maybe worth mentioning.
All right. We've got some more tongue twisters to go through before we get over to offense. A couple more super chats. My filler arc, ravioli, give me the formioli. For winning picks today on Prize Picks, can I get 3 MLB power plays, guys? All right. So, because I saw your super chat, so I was going over to check some of the numbers that are available over on OddsShopper that stand out to me. And also, we have some projections over at Awesemo. One thing we added, Stokastic. One thing we added recently that I really do like is pitches thrown projections and odds of it going over or under. So here's one that really stands out to me. I like Alex Cobb as a DFS option, but his over-under for pitches today, Terry, is 98.5. Give me the under on that number. That seems very lofty for Alex Cobb.
Does seem like a lot of pitches. I've got him the way my innings pitch projection works, it's got him just like a shade over 5 innings. So, I mean, hitting that total in that many innings doesn't seem all that likely, especially not if we expect him to have a good game. So, yeah, I'm with you on that one. It seems like a lot.
All right. So there's one that stands out to me. And let's see, what are some other ones that stand out? Bailey Falter's strikeouts. I think that's pretty neutral. I'm also kind of looking to see which strikeouts here, what are different or similar to sports books. Oh, here's one that's really low. Robbie Ray. I get that he just got lit up by the Houston Astros. His over-under for strikeouts today is 5.5 over at Prize Picks. What do you have for Robbie Ray's strikeouts? Because that seems like a low. He could go out and give up 6 earned runs, and I would still probably expect him to be north of 5.5 strikeouts.
Yeah, I've got him near 6.5. He's his implied is over 6.5 for me, and then his projected, which takes into account the opponent, drops below, but close enough. So yeah, I'm good with that one.
All right, so
we can't really begrudge anybody, getting tagged by the Astros. One of the best lineups in baseball. Don't strike out that much, but yeah, I've got him getting there.
All right, so we've got 2 that we've spotted we like so far: the Alex Cobb under, and then a Robbie Ray over. What else stands out? Looking through some of these numbers, see, Lance Lynn pitches. In this spot, so Lance Lynn's over-under for pitches is 95.5. One thing we've seen about him this year, even when he struggles, Tony La Russa, this guy he's a drunk. He's a million years old. He probably forgets what the pitch count is. There's been starts where Lance Lynn is getting his ass kicked, and still Tony La Russa let him throw like 118 pitches. He had a start against Baltimore where he was pitching kind of okay, and I think he came out in like the 7th inning once he was already over 100 pitches and then just got destroyed that inning.
I think that was the day I had the most Lance Lynn out of every start he's made this year too.
Give me over 95.5 pitches for Lance Lynn, because I think that Tony La Russa has no regard for tomorrow because he's not going to be alive for it.
I think that's a good spot. I mean, and Lance Lynn's always had that reputation anyway, Tony La Russa or not, as just kind of a guy who goes out there, likes to throw a lot of pitches and, kind of a workhorse guy. So yeah, that combination, absolutely.
All right, one more super chat here from the Bird Nerd. If a pickle is green and a radish is red, 1740 military time, what color is a tomato? Red. I like it. We're getting it. We're getting innovative here and a little bit creative. All right, let's move on over to the offenses now. We'll talk about our favorite stacks. Do us a favor, guys, like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. So I've made it pretty clear. I'm playing the Dodgers today. I spend a lot of time talking about pitcher because that's where I'm differentiating. I'm getting away from the chalky Garrett Cole, getting away from chalky Shane Bieber, getting away from chalky Lance Lynn. And I'm playing some lower-owned pitchers, getting to guys like Alek Manoah, Justin Verlander, Alex Cobb. That enables me to get to the Los Angeles Dodgers more often in my lineups, who, according to our top stack store right now, are the most likely team to be the highest scoring team by a country mile. We have them with about a 3x chance of being the top scoring team over the next highest scoring team. They're right around 24%, and then we've got 8% chance right around there for the Toronto Blue Jays to be the top scoring team. Now, here's the rub. They're projected for a bunch of ownership, but I do wonder if that could come down a little bit when people build lineups, just because the last time the Dodgers played against Chad Kuhl in Colorado, Kuhl shut them out. He pitched a complete game shutout. I've seen multiple times throughout the chats there where people say, well, the Dodgers got shut out by Kuhl. So I don't know I totally buy that they're actually going to have this right around 30% aggregate ownership. But either way, I'm cool with the ownership on it because I'm differentiating a pitcher. But Terry, how are you going to handle the Dodgers as a stack?
Yeah, it's kind of like exactly what you were saying. I got to them more than I typically get to a Coors team yesterday, and we saw them put up like 11 runs in the first 2 innings or whatever the hell they did. And they're kind of coming up again for me today. A little bit less so. I am getting other teams ahead of them. Getting some Braves, some Cardinals. Got to check that weather update. Getting to some Twins, some Astros. But the Dodgers are right there in the mix around the same totals as all of those teams. So I am trying to spread things out. I'm not getting like a super over the top concentration on them, but I do expect I will have a good amount of Dodgers in my lineups, and it plays just exactly on my board here, like what we were talking about, where I'm getting to a lot of these lower owned pitchers, and it's kind of, those are the lineups that are leading me into some of the Dodgers stacks. So I'm liking what I'm seeing here in my sort.
Yeah, and who you're playing at pitcher, I think, could really dictate your offense ownership. If you're really committed to playing Garrett Cole and Lance Lynn, don't play the Dodgers. Then you're playing the lineup. Like, this is as popular as a lineup could be on a slate of this size. So if you really like those pitchers, then you kind of have to go elsewhere at offense. And that's where I think things start to get interesting, Terry, because if you aren't playing the Dodgers and you can only play one lineup, let's say you're taking the Dodgers out of the mix, you want to make a stack, but it has to be a team that isn't the Dodgers. If that was the case, which would be the team you would pick?
I might take a look to my power index that I mentioned before, which is, looking at some of the home run upside, and the Braves are popping up nicely for me, as are the Cards. The Cards are somewhat interesting. They get a ton of ownership on like Tyler O'Neill on the FanDuel slate. He's around 25%, 16.7% on the DK slate because he's got all that power in his bat and he's super cheap. Everybody else is pretty low owned, fairly affordable. So they're an interesting team to put together going up against Anibal Sanchez. Only 10 innings pitched this season for Anibal, so it's a little unfair to point out the 7.32% home run rate, but he's been a targetable pitcher throughout his career. So I think you can throw Cards bats against him there. And then the Braves are also popping up a decent amount for me. I'm just looking for them on the board here. Why can't I find who the hell are they? Oh, they're there. Playing against the Diamondbacks. I forgot that. I thought that I was looking for them in the roadside. So it's a similar situation there where on the FanDuel slate, Acuna is getting 21.7%, but then it drops down into single digits outside of Dansby, who's getting 15. A little bit more ownership for them on the DK slate. Going up against Mad Bum, who we all know is targetable for contact. He's kept the ball in the yard a little bit this year, 3.10% home rate, neither good nor overly bad, but a 17.3% strikeout rate, a 4.70 xFIP, 1.33 whip. He's putting guys on, yielding opportunities. So this Braves team has a ton of offensive upside. They're easy enough to get to. There's some cheap bats in there. There's some low-owned bats around. Like if you go down to the bottom, say you want to just go grab a three-man that's fairly low-owned, just grab 5, 6, 7, Matt Olson, Marcelo Ozuna, Eddie Rosario. Plenty of offensive upside. They're very cheap and they're all low-owned. So it's an easy stack to get to, in my opinion, and there's a decent amount of power flashing.
Yeah, and I'm expecting regression from Madison Bumgarner from here on out for the rest of the season. He does have a 3.71 ERA, but all of the underlying numbers suggest a worse pitcher. 4.79 expected ERA from Bumgarner, 4.49 FIP, 4.7 xFIP. The strikeouts are way down this year, 17.3%. And for his career, he was a pitcher strikeout rate in the mid-20s. And then last year also, even last year where it wasn't particularly great, 20.2% strikeout rate. So that's come down, but the walk rate has also gone up. He's a 7.3% walk rate, which is close to the highest mark of his career. All alarming stuff when a pitcher has gotten to an age where we've seen some velocity decrease. The strikeouts are close to a career low, walks close to a career high. None of the stuff you really want to see. So I certainly expect some regression from Bumgarner. But something else also about this slate and just picking on offenses is the teams you mentioned, we all have them as being negatively leveraged as well, which is why I ultimately decided that I wanted to differentiate more at pitching than I did at offense, because all of the offense spots I like today are negatively leveraged today. The Braves against Bumgarner, negative leverage. We've got the Blue Jays going up against Brian Garcia and a potentially watered down Tigers bullpen. They're negatively leveraged. The Cardinals against Anibal Sanchez, negatively leveraged. The Yankees against Chris Bubich, negatively leveraged. So to find the positively leveraged offenses, you have to go way down the board and just look at the Rockies against Julio Urias or the Twins against Blake Snell. And those aren't spots I'm enamored with. That's why I really spend more time talking about pitching and trying to differentiate there. So at offense, is there any really low-owned offense that you would like to back and say, like, this is a low-owned offense that really makes sense to be contrarian with?
Let me jump to the board here. That's a little high. The Rockies kind of makes sense because they're also playing in Coors Field and they're 0.8% aggregate ownership on the FanDuel slate, while ranking looks like 7th, let's call it, on the overall upside board on FanDuel. On the DK slate, similar story, 0.9% ownership. Yeah, they're going up against a good pitcher in Julio Urias, but it's still a Coors Field game, still a Coors Field team. With everybody, all eyes on the Dodgers, might make sense to take a look at the Rockies. So that's an easy one to pick off there. I would say maybe the White Sox a little bit low owned against James Kaprielian, 2.8% aggregate ownership. That's low enough. You could argue Robbie Ray, very good pitcher, high strikeout upside, but we know when Robbie Ray is off, he is liable to be blown up, puts way too many guys on base via the free pass, and going up against a patient, deadly Astros team, I could argue that they're a little bit low owned at 1.2%. So there's some interesting spots. They're just not the very top of the board.
Yeah, you actually hit on my favorite spot here if I'm going for really low ownership at offense. And this is the team, if you guys want to be chalky at pitcher and you like Lance Lynn, you like Garrett Cole, I would go with the White Sox. Kaprielian's numbers they're really bad this year. 4.74 ERA, 5.62 FIP. His ground ball rate is 39%. He's a fairly high home run to fly ball rate, and the ball is always in play against him. He has a 15.6% K rate to a 10.6% walk rate. In general, if the ball isn't put in play against Caprillion, it's because he's walking somebody. So I think this is a not good pitcher. I get the White Sox offense has been underwhelming this year. They've also been banged up. They're banged up again. That seems to be an ongoing, never-ending issue with them. But I don't think Caprillion is quite a major league caliber pitcher. And this game is being played in Chicago, which is a hitter-friendly park. So it's a park downgrade for Caprillion. So that's my contrarian squad there, the White Sox. I think that they do make sense at low ownership. And there really aren't that many offenses that I like getting to at low ownership today.
Yeah, I think everything you said there makes a ton of sense. And Caprilion's just not distinguished himself at this level. And there's a lot of good bats on that team that you can grab with, at low ownership with a decent amount of confidence. John Moncada, 1.1% owned on FanDuel, 1.7% on DK, under $5,000, under 3,500. The price is a little bit low for a hitter like him. The price is correct for Jose Abreu, but he's only 2.1 on it and 1.2% on site to site. Jasmani Grandal back in the lineup, plenty of on base skill correlated scoring there. He's had an atrocious season so far, but we know what he can do. Eloy Jimenez, 0.7% owned, 6.1% on FanDuel, 0.7 on DK. Those are targetable bats. So even at the bottom end, Josh Harrison, I know is somebody who frustrates people, but from time to time, he can be frisky enough to include in a stack. Gavin Sheets, same story. They're both below average for the season in terms of creating runs, but there's potential in those bats. They make just enough contact. They put the ball in play just enough that they can be interesting back end cheap guys, but it's not like you really have to offset ownership because not a lot of people are going here.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that spot the exact same way. And then one other team I want to ask you about, because they are rating out as being positively leveraged for us right now in our top stacks tool. And then also a team that's picking up some ownership, but not all that much. What do you make of the Milwaukee Brewers going up against the Red Sox and what seems to have become a bullpen game? Brian Bayo was expected to start. I actually really liked over 3.5 strikeouts for Brian Bayo. I bet it this morning. And I kid you not, I'm doing the show with Pinnell this morning. And we're talking through it. And I'm like, I really like this Bayo number. I bet it. I want to say 30 seconds after I bet the number, he gets scratched from his start. And then the bet gets voided also. But
that sucks.
I think he's going to, because I think 3.5 strikeouts, that was a really good number for him. We'd projected around 5 this morning. But what do you make of the spot for the Brewers with it being a bullpen game now for Boston? Potentially we're going to get some middle innings out of Bayo. I typically don't love targeting offenses in bullpen games, but Boston's been such a disaster as of late. We have them as positively leveraged. What do you make of the Brewers?
Yeah, the Brewers are an interesting spot. They were another team that was popping up decently on my my power index. They landed third behind the Braves and the Cards. So they were a team that I was interested in and just looking for them on the top stacks tool here. They land second. So I knew they were high. I just couldn't find where. So yeah, that's a targetable spot for me. Third on the FanDuel slate. They're not positively leveraged, but it's pretty thin. It's essentially efficient ownership. So it's a spot we're targeting on the DK slate. They are getting a little bit of positive leverage. I do expect a few innings out of Bayo, and he's been a walk machine. He's a talented kid, but I think, he's maybe not fully cooked yet, needs a little bit more seasoning. So yeah, I think that's a spot you can throw some of those Brewers bats into the mix as well. And if we're looking for specific names, everybody under 10% ownership on the DK slate. A couple of guys popped just above 10% on the FanDuel slate around McCutchen, Christian Yelich, Luis Urias. But there's plenty of bats to go to in there that aren't those guys. Willy Adames has a lot of pop in his bat. Luis Urias, I think, is somewhat sneaky. He had a very nice year last year, 23 home runs and 570 plate appearances. He's got 12 this year and 290 above average for run creation there. The back end of the lineup, Colton Wong's an okay hitter, but Victor Caratini, Tyrone Taylor, not really inspiring anybody. Rowdy Tellez, he hits them in bunches. So if you get him on the right day, you can maybe pick off a nice home run day, but there's plenty of power in that lineup. I don't mind getting there when they're low owned.
It's the funniest possible scenario for Brian Bayo. Are you like me where you've played him in DFS and it's just gone extremely poorly to this point?
Yeah. And I had him picked up in most season long teams as well.
All right. Here's the funniest potential way for him to troll me. I have this bet that got voided. Him to come and pitch long relief. He pitches like the second inning and ends up pitching like 5 innings of relief with 8 shutout strikeout innings.
Oh, totally.
Where my number one, I don't have exposure to him in DFS today. I don't even know if he's going to end up pitching today or if he does in long relief, how many innings it's going to be. So it was a bet that would have won that ends up getting voided. But then also he gets to kind of spit on me for rostering him and him sucking all those other times. So just from a comedy standpoint, that's kind of what I think would be the funniest outcome here with Brian Bayo. But I don't know what those middle innings are going to look like for the Red Sox.
That sounds like downright the expectation at this point.
Yeah.
Now you're putting it that way.
We've got I was going to ask for any more thoughts on offenses, but we actually got a super chat here from Nick Engel. He's asking Lux and Kirk or Trace Thompson and Vladdy. This is a 4-2 stack, LA and Toronto. So for stacking purposes, he's got both ends covered. So Lux and Kirk or Trace and Vladdy. Do you have a preference amongst the 2v2 there?
I mean, one of those is getting you a much bigger name and a superstar than the other is. So I'd probably, easy answer is to take it that way. I think that's the route I would go with it. Yeah, I think I would take the Vladdy side of it and not really sweat the ownership or anything.
Let me look at our tools and do some quick maths in my head and see. I'll click on the top batters tool, which is a new tool we have over at Stokastic.com. Top batters tool shows the percentage odds of each individual hitter to be the highest scoring player at their position on the slate. All right. You're watching me do calculations. You're watching. If you've ever wondered what it looks like to watch somebody add numbers in their head, you're seeing it right here. This is really big stuff, guys. All right, slight lean towards Trace Thompson and Vladdy. That is going to be my choice, but no real issues with either of them.
Yeah, and I like the price and the ownership on Thompson. He's bottom of the batting order, but like you said early in the show, you probably pick up a couple additional plate appearances by virtue of being in course. So I think that works at as the lowest owned Dodger and a pretty cheap bat there too.
Super chat from Corey Bomber playing Oakland 1-4. Is that dumb? Paying up at pitcher and then LA 3-man. I understand the leverage point because I think Lance Lynn is crazy overowned. But with that said, it's not something I think I need to do on this slate. I think you're getting enough leverage by going with lower owned pitchers. I don't think you also need to stack against Lance Lynn, especially considering how bad Oakland's offense has been this year. Is that something that you would recommend doing at all, is stacking against Lance Lynn just for the leverage purposes? I think it's a little bit of overkill.
Yeah, to me, that's the key part was the last part, what you said there of you want to do that. I agree with the thought in general, but you want to do that with a good team. You don't want to do that with a team as bad as the A's. They don't have to be great, but you want to do it with a better team than the A's. So it's not for me, not today.
Yeah, and also on a slate of this size, it's a little bit, it's a little bit different on a slate of this size because you still are going to need Oakland to not only for a high finishing GPP lineup. Not only do you need them to hit Lance Lynn, you also need them to outscore most of the other teams, if not all of the other teams on the slate. It's just a low probability outcome. So I'll read off our top stack odds for the Oakland A's, and then we could call it a night. So
yeah, I actually got to get these lineups in here. So
you probably want to do that at some point as well. So in terms of the top stack odds for the Oakland A's, and keeping in mind we have Lance Lynn as being wildly overowned in our tools today. We have Oakland with a 1.8% chance to be the top scoring team on the slate, which is actually less than their ownership. They're projected for 2% ownership. So we actually do have them being a little bit overowned.
That's funny.
At 2% ownership. So not the spot that I would particularly go to on this slate. Just differentiate a pitcher or just not playing Lance Lynn. That could be enough to make your lineup look different. But other than that, guys, thank you very much for watching. Terry's got to do his lineups. I've got to eat dinner and live my life. So do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Tyler, if you're still with us, you could start playing the outro music now. Guys, I hope you have a great weekend and good luck tonight.